Hey everyone, happy Friday night. It's GameFace episode 135 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield.
I'm Matt Kyle.
And we're here to bring you the biggest and the baddest in video games for this week. Maybe not so big and bad.
Big. It's a relative thing.
Relatively speaking, anyway. I want to, before we start the show, I want to say thank you to folks on YouTube. So this week on Pachter Factor, we finally brought up the whole Twitch Prime thing. And the response on YouTube has been amazing. I have been shocked at how many people have gone and signed up and subscribed to our channel on Twitch. So thank you very much. For those of you who are wondering what the hell I'm talking about and you're watching this episode on YouTube, there are instructions down in the description that explain how it works. It literally takes like 45 seconds, and you can give us $2.50. Also, thanks to everyone in the chat right now who has already given us money tonight or have done it earlier in the month. It has been a huge, huge help for us and a great revenue stream for us. So thank you to our patrons who are doing it, in addition to supplying us with the money we need to survive, and to the people who on YouTube are just trying to help us out so that they can keep the content coming. So thank you all very, very much. Hope you're having a great week. We're here to cap it off for you guys. Matt, the industry's pretty slow still.
A little quiet. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been distracting myself with Comic-Con.
Yeah.
From a distance.
From a distance, yeah. I'll never want to go to Comic-Con again, I don't think.
I would only go to Comic-Con if I was working.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I don't enjoy.
If you had to.
I don't enjoy being there.
Which
at
is
all.
so weird because you typically love everything that's going on there, like all the movies.
Oh yeah,
and
but I love it if I can see it, and you can't
Yeah.
see anything. You can't navigate the crowds. You can't get to anything. You can't, unless you're waiting hours in line to see the panel, you're not going to get it. I mean, I went in 1996 when you didn't have to ask where the comic books were.
When that's what the show was.
It was I remember I walked up to the, first off, I parked on the street next to the convention center. Like I parked on the street and I walked 100 yards to the entrance of the convention center. If you've been to the San Diego Comic-Con since 2004 or so, you will know that that's
insane.
That's like a unicorn. It's like describing a
Finding
mythological
any
beast.
parking there is impossible.
And I walked up, and as I was approaching, a guy came out of the main doors carrying a boxed Imperial shuttle, Return of the Jedi Imperial shuttle, and my face must have reacted because he's like, haven't seen one of these in a while, have you? And I'm like, no, I don't know if I've ever seen one. He's like, you want to check it out? And like he just like right there in front of the thing, he put it down, opened it, and let me see it and play with it, and he packed it up and walked away. And I'm like, wow, that was great. And like just walked up, bought a ticket, went in for the day, saw stuff, picked up a bunch of stuff I'd never seen in person before because eBay wasn't really a thing yet.
Yeah.
And got good prices and went home. Well, not home. I was staying with a friend in Escondido, but like and also like none of my friends I was with came with me.
Oh, wow.
And today, every single one of them would come with me.
Well, they're probably all there right now, and you're here.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They're all mothers and fathers,
and
you know, they're all adults now. I'm the only one left. But they would probably go with me for a day now, because everybody loves geek stuff now.
Yeah.
But then I went. The next time I went was 2006 with G4, because I hadn't been in 10 years, and I walked in. I was like, oh my God, it's E3. Like, what happened? And I had to ask someone where the comic books were. He's like, oh, they're way down there, the other side of the hall, and you look down and it's like the lights aren't even on over there. It's like, yeah, and I had to walk down. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess there are comic books here. Okay, and like you look back and it's just like a carnival with like giant inflatable Pikachus and stuff. I'm just like, what is this?
It has changed a lot.
So yeah, the last time I think I went was 2013, and that was purely to get a Transformers exclusive. Now I don't do that anymore. Although was it 2013? Yeah, because actually. A former intern from G4, my friend Erica, she was there for Ubisoft, and she went and got the exclusives I needed from the Hasbro toy shop on the preview night. And I just picked them up from her, and then I wandered around the floor and went up. It was great. She did a tremendous service for me, because otherwise that was like hours of waiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now they just sell them 2 weeks later. They just put them up on the online store, and you can buy them there. Really? And so I'm just like,
now you have no
reason to go, pretty much.
All right, so we will talk about Comic-Con a little bit. As usual, there's some game stuff going on there. We'll get into that. We're also going to talk a little bit...
But don't look for that Avengers game, because apparently Marvel games got nothing for you at this point.
Yeah, and we're actually going to talk a little bit, too, about some of the more pop culture stuff. We'll talk about a couple of the big movie stories from Comic-Con, maybe some TV stuff. Obviously, we have plenty of time, because there's not enough game content to really get GameFace out to where it usually is. So we're going to spend a little bit extra time on Comic-Con talking about some periphery stuff that maybe we normally wouldn't. So... let's kick things off. We're going to talk first about a game that has been ported to the Switch called Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. It was a Wii U game that got pretty good reviews when it came out. Sold pretty well, relatively speaking,
fine
considering the
for a Wii U
installed
game.
base that the Wii U had at the time.
Seems to be well regarded by the Nintendo fandom.
Yep. And it is now on Switch with some enhancements, I might add. I've been playing it for the last couple days.
Oh, wow, we're using footage?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I captured this myself.
Okay.
This isn't a trailer. So chances are it'll probably still get flagged by Nintendo somehow. I think Nintendo actually physically watches our shows because we've run footage that I've captured before and still got flags.
Hello out there, Nintendo.
Yes,
land.
hello, Nintendo. Please give me more work than I need already. So I've been playing this for the last couple of days. I did not play it on the Wii U for whatever reason. I think maybe it came out when I was working on some other stuff.
Also, it was a full price game and it didn't quite look like that. But I think I played one level at E3 on the Wii U years ago. And I have not picked this up for the Switch because my Switch game of the moment is Octopath Traveler. So
We'll talk about that as well today, and I've been playing that as well.
I do like I liked the one time I played this. I felt like it kind of had a Zack and Wiki kind of element to it that I enjoyed.
Very similar, yeah.
I just haven't gone back to it at any point.
Even more so now. So one of the big changes that they've made is the way the old game played. It had a lot of touchscreen controls, and I've been playing this docked. I haven't been playing it in handheld mode. So when you play it docked, there's that little blue cursor you can see there on the screen, and you control that with motion controls. And you can use it like I used it right there. So Toad would lift the switch and then raise up the stairway so you could get up to the star. And the way the game works is, for those of you who don't know, is it's a collection of levels. They're all self-contained, like they're just basically floating out in free space.
Yeah, they're like little puzzle boxes.
Yeah, and the objective is to get the star. That's pretty much the main objective. Now, there are 3 crystals that you can collect on each stage, and there's some things you can go back to. There's like a hide-and-seek minigame that you can play on each level once you finish the game, but I haven't got there yet. So there's some things to collect while you're trying to collect the star for the completionists who want to get 100%. For the most part, I've just been getting the star and getting the hell out of there. I'm not all about trying to find every little way to get the crystals that are in the game. But there are some pretty significant changes to this other than the motion controls for the Switch version. And also, by the way, if you play it in handheld mode, you can play it like the old game using the touchscreen on the gamepad.
You fell.
Yeah, I've died a couple times in this game. But some of the other changes, there are 82 stages, which is, I think, an extra 20 plus stages from the original. 4 of them are for Super Mario Odyssey. But the weird thing is that they removed the levels from Super Mario World, which was the Mario 3D platformer for Wii U.
Yeah, I've seen some arguing over that. Like, some people think that, like, they removed content that's bad. Other people that were fans of the Wii U version, like, kind of feel like they were just sort of randomly repurposed Mario 3D World levels that kind of became treasure tracker levels, whereas the new levels were designed for this game. They just have theming from Odyssey, and so they consider them superior to the Wii U version.
Interesting. I don't know why you would ever remove content from a game unless it were broken or fans didn't like it.
Yeah, it can't be a space issue, so I don't know why they would do that.
So controlling the camera in this game is a big deal. That's really one of the primary gameplay mechanics, is being smart with the camera to try to find the hidden pathways, because there's some times where you have to get the camera angle exactly at the perfect angle to see a doorway that you need to walk through or a path that you couldn't see before. And the game, I think, does a great job of playing with the perspective in the game. Like, I don't know, I'm probably about 3/4 of the way through the game at this point, and once every 2 or 3 stages something happens where I'm like, oh wow, that's really smart, that's really creative. The level design in this makes use of the camera extensively, and it provides those moments that kind of make you smile here and there that I get from a lot of Nintendo games. So the cursor, not only will it move switches and things, if you put the cursor over one of the enemies and then tap the button, it will pause the enemy. So that's another mechanic. Timing, speed, messing with the enemies, that's all really important mechanics that will ultimately contribute to you completing each stage. The other thing I would say about this game is that the difficulty ramps up real quick. Like, there's 3 books in the game, and I'm currently on the 3rd book. The first book is pretty easy, But even by like the 5th stage of the first book, it starts to get to the point where you really have to start thinking about it. And all the footage that we're showing, by the way, is from the first book, so we're not spoiling anything for you guys. We're showing you all stuff from early on in the game. And as you can see here also, the pointer, you can use it to slide the parts of the stage. And you don't control which direction it slides, you just tap it, and then it automatically kind of toggles from one position to another. And all these elements get mixed together to create some very interesting and unique and creative puzzles. It's not really a platformer. I know people may look at this and say, oh, it just looks like a Mario game starring Toad. You can't even jump in this game. Toad can only walk. And he can run. And so you learn how fast he can walk, how fast he can run, how long enemies get stunned for when you tap them with the cursor. All those elements are wound up to create some very interesting, very creative level design. Also a great option for handheld mode, although I haven't been playing it that way. But because each level is self-contained and you can just put the thing to sleep, even mid-level if you want to, it works perfect as a handheld game that you could maybe take with you on your commute or on a trip or whatever. Because the whole thing is just built in bite-sized chunks. There's not much of a story. You saw the whole story right there at the beginning where one of Toad's friends gets taken away by a bird, and then your objective is to get your friend back, and that's pretty much the extent of the entire story in the game. So it's not really a story-driven game. It's not really a full-featured game. You can finish the whole thing. I mean, I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I've been playing about 6 hours, something like that. So I'm guessing you can finish the whole thing in 8 or 9 hours. So it's not one of those games that you're going to have and you're going to play forever. There is some incentive to go back and replay stuff, like I said, the hide-and-seek minigame, or if you want to go back and find all the crystals for 100% completion. That might give you some reason to go back. Personally, I don't see myself returning to the game unless they release some levels as DLC, which is very possible because that did happen with the Wii U version. So I'm guessing the Super Mario Odyssey levels are just the beginning. I wouldn't be surprised if there are a bunch of other Mushroom Kingdom-themed worlds that eventually are released as DLC for it. The other thing, too, as I said earlier, it's not really like a full-featured game. It doesn't have a story. Well, it's also not priced like a full-featured game. It's $10 cheaper. It's $50. Or wait, maybe it's 40. Yeah, I think it's 40. Nintendo sent me a code for it, so I'm not sure how much it costs, but I know it is discounted. It's not a full-price game. Would I pay $40 for this game? Probably not. I would pay $30 for it. I definitely wouldn't pay $50 for it. So maybe someone can clarify in the chat exactly what the price is. I know it's not full-priced. But I've had a good bit of fun with it. It's a nice little filler in this dead zone of video games. This and Octopath Traveler released on the same day, by the way. Nintendo, the only publisher who realized, hey, there's this huge gaping hole of a release calendar in the summertime. Let's try to put out a couple games. But you can see here, like I'm controlling 2 Toads at once. It's very inventive, very creative. It makes you think about each level in very different and unique ways. And because the camera is such a big part of the mechanics, the camera controls are great. They're very intuitive. You get as much control as you could ever want. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. You can pretty much go from any angle. You can use the motion controls to control the camera too if you want to. But I've enjoyed my time with Captain Toad. I should add, I'm also a big Toad fan, just in general. I like that character for whatever reason. Even though he's like the most generic, and some people would say stupid character in the Mushroom Kingdom, for whatever reason, I love Toad. I think a lot of it is that he's so ambiguous and nobody knows what or who or what sex he is.
Wasn't he this is a different Toad than we're used to, or?
I don't know.
Like there's a bunch of Toads.
Yeah, I mean, there is like a Toad posse.
I've seen the argument over whether the mushroom is a hat or his head.
Right.
And I believe Nintendo or I think one of the Nintendo people confirmed that it is in fact his head. And then there was a whole argument whether like they have hair under there, because if they have hair under the thing, it's probably a hat. But then there's one female, there's a Toadette in one of the Paper Mario games, I think, where her hair is mushrooms.
Oh.
It's like a ponytail made of the mushroom thing, and it
just threw everyone into
it got real weird and real meta, and like people were posting like anatomical drawings of like these things. It was more entertaining than just about anything Toad has ever done in a video game. That's for sure.
The chat is saying it's $40, so $20 cheaper than your typical game, and that is borderline. Like, if you're really hurt and you need something to play, I could see spending the $40 on it. Otherwise, to me, it's kind of the pinnacle of a $30 game. And I think a lot of that...
But really, you're going to have to decide on 40 because Nintendo doesn't discount stuff. So.
Never. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be $40 for a long time. I guess the one thing I would say is if you are a completionist and you can see yourself going back and completing every stage 100% and then going back and playing the hide-and-seek stuff, then maybe the $40 is worth it. If you're someone who just plays through games to play through them, and you don't care if you get 100%, particularly with Switch where you don't really get achievements or anything like that for doing it, then I would say don't buy it, I guess, because I can't say wait for it to drop to $30 because it's never going to drop to $30.
Although, I mean, if you're not interested in Octopath Traveler, what else are you playing?
Yeah.
So.
Or maybe I would recommend, if you have a Wii U, going back and buying the Wii U version. You can probably find that used on eBay for pretty cheap at this point.
I don't know.
Really?
Nintendo stuff, by the time it goes out of print, the price goes up again because you can't get it anymore.
Right.
So I don't know how cheap that would be at this point. Maybe cheaper because this version came out now. But then again, it might have gone up because it has levels that this one doesn't have.
That's true. And you could also figure that there probably weren't a ton of copies of this sold for Wii U.
Wii U games are probably going to be something of a collector's item eventually, just by virtue of how few were made of each game.
I think the Wii U will be a collector's item eventually.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, you only sold like 10 million or so of them.
I will say this, if you like the Wii U, I would pick up an extra gamepad at some point.
Yeah.
Because that thing's going to break before the system does, and then you won't be able to get one.
I know this, when I packed my Wii U away, when I finally retired it, I packed it very carefully.
Although to be fair,
I put all the wrappers back around everything. I was like, maybe in 30 years when I'm ready to retire, this might be actually worth something.
I think almost everything of value on that system is going to get ported forward to the Switch eventually. I mean, maybe not Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Yeah.
Although they should.
Yeah, that's probably the one that they should.
Like anything that is even halfway decent on the Wii U should be ported forward, including, I think, the HD Zeldas.
Yeah.
Because why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Like, more content for the Switch. Tons of people didn't play anything like that on the Wii U. There's no reason not to keep your HD remasters evergreen for the Zelda series, especially because moving forward, the Zelda series is going to be very different from what those games are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's more variety. I think we will probably see a day when the Wii U is kind of pointless, except for maybe like, I don't know, that Fatal Frame game that was on it and like stuff like that. I still kept mine. I never get rid of a system.
Me either.
Never get rid of hardware.
Yeah.
Games, yes, you can always pick up a game again, but hardware, you'll always regret getting rid of hardware.
Yeah.
Well, eventually.
I always keep all the hardware. I have every console I've ever owned still. I never sell it after I'm quote unquote done with it.
I even have trouble getting rid of them when they stop working.
Yeah, well, my GameCube is broken.
Attached.
I have a GameCube that when I worked at GameSpot, the whole editorial team at GameSpot, we sent them out to this company called Custom Consoles or something like that, and all of us got our GameCubes modded, and they did it for free, and then we did like a feature on them as like a thank you or whatever. And I have a metallic forest green GameCube with a blue LED light and an import switch on the side. So I just flip a switch and I can play Japanese games. And it has discrete errors. It won't read. But I have not thrown it out because I'm like, well, this thing's been modded, and like I think I'd rather, if I can find somebody to fix the disk drive, which probably will never happen.
I used to have the first
and it's also the DOL1, which has the
digital out.
Yeah.
First mod thing I ever did was I took my Saturn in to a store in Burlingame called Network Video. And they did mods there, and I wanted to play X-Men versus Street Fighter, the Japanese version. So I went in and they had it done, a little toggle switch in the back of the Saturn. You could switch between Japanese and US, and I still have it. The toggle switch is long, basically corroded into nothing,
really?
But it's stuck on Japan. So, which is kind of preferable because like, okay, I can still play all the Japanese stuff I have. To get you can get a US Saturn for like $20 on eBay.
Yeah.
So, which I did. So everything's fine.
I think they broke my console.
But
honestly.
I think once you're soldering stuff onto something, you're gonna cause some kind of issue. And like that certainly happened with everything I had modded back in the day. I had a mod chipped PlayStation 1 to play Japanese stuff, and that stopped working after a while. It did that eventually. Of course, they all did. I did that thing where you had to turn it upside down
or on its side.
And it was one of the ones with the AV out.
Oh.
With the one that the DJs like.
Yeah.
which I still think is bullshit.
Yeah, I think it is. I was a DJ during the PlayStation era. Definitely, we did not look at that system that way.
Oh boy, and I eventually got rid of it because it stopped working. I replaced it with a new one, and I sold it to one of my DJ friends for like way more than it was worth because he was going to fix it.
Right.
And he did.
Yeah, I think they broke my console. It worked when it came back, but it worked for like another 4 months. And I started getting like disc read errors here and there.
Yeah, well, also the GameCube, my launch GameCube died.
Did it?
For no reason, like out of nowhere. That's how I learned. That's how I learned about the difference between the two versions, because it died, and I had a black launch GameCube, and it died on me, and I went to go replace it, and I bought a new one. I came home and it didn't have the frickin' digital out. I was like clang, clang, clang. What the fuck? Yeah. So I had to go back to Best Buy. The Best Buy guy and I like searched through. Like you could kind of pry the little thing where you could see the serial number. We pry it out, open a little bit. You can see where they got one. And we had to dig through like 40 of them to find one that still was the old model. But I got one. It worked. That's the one I still have.
Yeah.
But the only game system of that generation that did not die on me was the original Xbox.
Yeah, that thing was a tank. I don't think you could make it.
I'm actually pretty sure that my original Xbox doesn't work anymore though, because of the diode.
I forgot about
capacitor leaking problem.
That's right. Yeah.
Because I
haven't turned mine on in like 15
neither.
years.
But it's funny. I thought about it like right after I moved. I'm like, I would like to play Crimson Skies again.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and then that day they announced Crimson Skies was coming to backwards compatibility. I'm like, I'll just wait 2 weeks. It's cool.
No, you need to dig that thing up. You have to find like the proprietary cable for it, like the AV cable. It isn't just something you can use from anything.
No, it's all individual. I have them all in a box somewhere, but it's like I could go dig through all the boxes I own to find it, or I could just wait.
Yep.
And Crimson Skies will come out, and I'll just put the
disc in. And it'll look better and play better,
and just put the disc in, and there it goes.
Yep.
That Xbox One X, I love it, but I haven't played it. I've played very few things that came out less than 3 years ago on it.
He used a lot for backwards compatibility, which is great. So there you go. That's Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. Again, if you're a completionist, I recommend buying it for $40. If you're not, I guess ultimately I would say, if you have a Wii U, just find the Wii U version. You have to be able to find the Wii U version cheaper than $40, I'm guessing. But you're not going to get the Super Mario Odyssey levels. So
I don't know.
It's a trade-off. But maybe Nintendo is smart in how it priced it, because I have a feeling a lot of Nintendo fans will feel how I feel, but because they're big-time Nintendo fans, they'll be like, it's $10. Totally worth it. That's what I'm guessing anyway.
For what?
For a treasure. If they're saying that $10 from 30 to 40, they'll say, whatever. I'll spend the extra $10. It is a good handheld game, which gives it a little bit of a bonus.
One day.
One
day.
My goal is to see Matt playing the Switch undocked. One day.
I don't know what that would take.
Yeah. You'd probably have to get a job where you travel a lot.
Nope.
Still then you wouldn't? You play games on your cell phone instead?
No, I'd bring a 3DS.
Yeah, good point.
More compact, closes up, doesn't require a separate case.
Yeah.
Longer games, bite-sized games. Like, I'll play Fire Emblem on a plane until they land. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. Longer battery life.
So what happens when the Fire Emblem for Switch comes out?
I'll play that too, but I'm going to play it at home.
But would you play it? Would you then play it handheld?
No. Because I can play it on TV. I'm never going to pick a smaller, inferior screen with worse sound when I could play it on my big entertainment center.
To me, it makes no sense. But I think a lot of people are like me, and they only play in handheld whenever the TV's being used by someone else. Or
see, that doesn't happen here.
Yeah, you're the king of the castle here. You can do whatever you want.
She has her own TV.
Right.
Yeah. We watch stuff together, but that's when no one is ever watching something on and then I have another TV in there if I want to just move
a really nice one, I might add.
So I'm never at a point where I can't use a TV, which I realize is not the case for most people.
Yeah.
But because it is the case for me, why would I ever play it handheld?
Yep. So there you go, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about Comic-Con, which we kind of prefaced a little bit in our intro. It is going on right now, although I think for most people, today's the first big day for everybody.
Well, it's like preview night is Wednesday, and then Thursday is when things start to happen.
Yeah, Thursday is like
most
go out and get drunk night before everything starts.
Well, most people Thursday's an actual day of the show, but most people get there on Friday, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the big days for as far as like the mass audience showing up.
Yeah, but there were still panels yesterday and things happening. Like the Marvel
There were still people standing in really long lines.
The tremendously disappointing Marvel Games panel was yesterday.
Yeah.
3 out of 4 things they showed were disappointing.
Yeah.
That's because they showed a bunch of mobile crap no one cares about, and Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's a big deal at Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah.
And as it should be, because it comes out September 5th, right?
Yeah, like 50 days, I think they said.
And so this is kind of Insomniac and Sony's last chance to really market this thing to...
Yeah, I think it'll be a Gamescom as well.
Yeah. But I was going to say to this crowd of people.
Yeah, well, I think this
the
crowd
people
of people
who are maybe just, they aren't necessarily hardcore gamers, but they love Spider-Man,
Right.
and maybe they do own a PS4, or maybe not.
I think
this
a lot of the
convinces them
people,
to buy one.
I think a lot of people are buying it because like they showed that special edition PS4, the red with the white spider logo on it.
We're going to get to that in a second.
That sold out on Amazon in 6 hours.
Wow.
So it's
working.
I said Spider-Man's going to sell a lot of systems. A lot of systems. People are into this. They should be.
Someone in chat said it's September 7th. Is it the 5th or the 7th?
I don't remember.
One of those days.
Whatever the Tuesday is.
Yeah. Although it could be a Friday, the way things are going anymore. A lot of games get released on Fridays. So they released this trailer we're seeing right now, which is a story trailer, which it isn't particularly long. And then as Matt mentioned, the other big story from Comic-Con is that there is a special edition PlayStation 4 Pro coming for Spider-Man. Surprised that it wasn't a base model and that it's Pro? There hasn't been a ton of special Pro versions yet, have there? There was God of War.
I think Destiny 2 was.
Was it?
I thought it was.
I don't know.
I would expect all special edition things to be a Pro at this point.
You would think it would make sense because Sony needs to sell the Pro. It hasn't sold
because this
especially
thing's clearly going to run better on it, so
Absolutely.
that's what they want you to play.
It's going to make the game look better and all that. But it's a PS4 Pro. What do you think of the hardware, Matt?
You mean like what it looks like?
Yeah.
I think it looks not great.
Yeah.
I don't like red systems to begin with, and while I am super excited about this game, I am not a giant fan of the white spider logo, so no. That was a no for me.
I'm a no on pretty much every special, and there it is right there.
Also, I already own one. So
I'm a no on pretty much every special edition console. Like, I don't like consoles that are tied to one thing or one game.
I like the. Was there anything I liked? I think there was like a Halo one that was sort of like military green or something. I thought was nice.
I have that controller actually. I don't have the console, but I have the controller.
But yeah, usually a lot of the times like the special edition consoles are just not looking too good. I think most of the PS4 ones have looked awful. Like they just don't look right or look good.
The God of War one I thought was okay because you couldn't immediately tell that it was a God of War console by looking at it. It kind of had the axe shape on it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my thing. Is one thing I will say in favor of the Spider-Man one is one of my problems is I feel like a lot of the special edition PlayStation 4s just don't go far enough.
Yeah,
it's too subtle, or it's like only in the corner, or it's like something where this it's a giant red console with a huge Spider-Man logo on it. Great, awesome. I don't like red consoles, and I don't like the white Spider-Man logo. So sorry, but clearly they don't need my help.
No. It's selling. It's sold out in 6 hours.
I do like the controller a little bit, like controller with the white.
No, the white buttons. I love them.
Yeah, nice.
I like any controller that has kind of contrasting buttons on it.
Yeah, I am continually tempted to do the custom Xbox One controller.
Yeah,
thing.
Me too. I still haven't done it, but I look at it all the time.
I've made the multiple controllers in the little design a thing app, and then I always just back out because I'm just like, that's a lot of money for a controller I don't need.
I'm surprised the trailer didn't show a spin around of the console. It just shows the front.
It's just red.
You assume it is. I mean, you don't know. Maybe on Amazon they have more photos of it or whatever. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of. I always just buy the base model console, black or white.
I can't remember the last time I bought a special edition console of anything. I don't think because usually I already have one.
I've never owned one.
Usually I already have one, so why would I want another one?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I sent out a GameCube to get redone by this third party, but I always buy like the base model, and then that's that. Like even now, if I eventually upgrade to a PS4 Pro, I'm not going to buy the Spider-Man one. I'm not going to buy the God of War one. I will buy the black or white.
Like sometimes I would consider like a special color one or something, or like a, I never did get one, but I always kind of like the blazing orange GameCube, the orange juice GameCube.
Well, they only released that in Japan though, I think.
Did they?
Yeah, I don't think it ever came out in the U.S. That was the thing with the GameCube though, is that Japan had tons of colors.
Right, yeah.
There was a green aqua one for Tales of Symphonia. There was the burnt orange that initially was supposed to come out here. In the marketing for GameCube, they showed the orange one in the lineup. And then when they finally released it, it only came in the black and purple, although they called it blue for whatever weird reason. To me, that's purple, right?
What?
The GameCube.
Like the standard GameCube?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's purple.
Yeah, Nintendo calls it blue.
What?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's like that dress meme or whatever, where some people see it as one color or whatever.
I don't remember them calling it. I thought they gave it some weird name though.
I don't know. But even
I
back
had the black one, I
with
don't
the
remember.
N64 where they had all those crazy like jelly see-through
yeah.
color, I just had the black one. Like I've always just been that way.
Yeah, well, I don't choose that, but I do it because usually I buy a launch system and they're normal looking. You know?
Yeah.
Sometimes, but it's always kind of like, oh, that's cool. I'm not gonna get one. You know, like why would I replace my? And nowadays it's just like, oh, you want to transfer all your damn installed games to like how long you spend downloading all your stuff again?
Yeah.
That's cool. Like it's for people that don't have a system already, and clearly it seems to have worked.
Yeah, it sold out in 6 hours.
Yeah, so it was gone by the end of the day.
That's pretty impressive.
I mean, there might be more. I mean, there's no reason they can't make more. But
A lot of
the
Spider-Man
initial
fans out
allotment was, I think, and like that's the right place to do it. Spider-Man.
There's no better place to do it.
No, Spider-Man fans, I think, are going to come out of the woodwork. I know 2 people that want to buy a PlayStation 4 just for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like and they hadn't even seen all this new stuff yet.
Yeah. And probably don't care anyway.
Yeah. I am
They're like,
interested.
it's a Spider-Man game. It looks awesome. That's good enough for me.
I am interested to see because I guess we've seen the Super Special Edition, which is also sold out, which has the statue.
Right.
And whoever he's above is a spoiler apparently, and apparently the statue is in the box is going to come covered with that part of it covered with a
Really?
little note that says you might not want to open this until you get to this part in the game.
It's the main bad guy, I'm guessing.
So whoever's behind all this stuff,
Right.
yeah.
Interesting. Let's go through some of the other gaming-related stuff that's going on at Comic-Con. Call of Duty is there. They're having a panel. They put out a couple trailers for Zombies yesterday. And I think a lot of the games media came out yesterday. It was like kind of the first real day of the show, and all the publishers were just like, here, this is our Comic-Con stuff. 2 more trailers for Zombies yesterday. One of them features the very original cast from Zombies.
A lot of Nazi zombies yesterday.
Yeah.
There was also a new J.J. Abrams movie,
All right.
Overlord.
Yeah, I saw that. Treyarch is pushing Zombies really hard
Yeah,
because it kind of has to.
because it has no campaign.
Right. Yeah.
Like I saw previews talking about like the storyline yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm like storyline. Oh, the zombies thing. Okay.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's sort of where they're sort of shifting if you want
The narrative
if you want
part
a
of the
story part of the game, it's in the zombies stuff.
Yeah, and they're doing a panel. I think it's today actually. So there might be some more media that comes out of that here in the next few hours because Comic-Con ends at like 7, 8.
Yeah, the panels go to 7 or 8. If I
Yeah,
remember right.
and so there still might be some stuff coming out for Black Ops 4 in the next few hours. Let's see, Lego DC Supervillains, a game that was completely engulfed and swallowed at E3 because there's just so much other stuff going on, gets a spotlight at Comic-Con, again, where it should get a spotlight. The interesting thing of what they showed for this game is character customization, character creation. I'm not sure how it works.
Well,
It looks pretty extensive.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. Is like you create your own villain, and they showed it in the live stream demos at E3, where like you level up or you get new abilities, and then you can choose like, do you want a beam or do you want to like whatever? So like you pick a beam. Like in the demo, they picked a beam, and then they could pick whether it came out of their eyes or their hands or both hands or one hand or their chest or their belt or like what. You could pick wherever the beam came out of, what kind of beam it was, what it looked like, what color it was, you've really extensive like creation controls, like customization controls over what your character ends up doing superpower wise.
How does it fall in line as far as whether you're a good guy or a bad guy?
You're a bad guy.
You're always a bad guy.
Yeah, you are a DC villain.
No matter what.
Yeah, that's the trick, is you're a DC supervillain, and you create your own custom villain, and no matter how lame they are, there's already a DC villain that is that already. Like that, DC supervillains. The DC supervillain roster is wide and deep. There are tons of them. It's very hard to come up with a supervillain type that DC hasn't covered at least 3 times. I mean, they got 4 people that like have an honorific followed by freeze or cold in their whole. I mean, there's a lot of it. It's so I mean it's a cool. I mean, I'm kind of.
Are you excited for this? I mean, how do you feel about playing a villain?
Not at all.
No?
Like I just not because of villain or DC. I'm just tired of Lego games.
Yeah, me too.
I tried to play the Marvel Avengers one and then the Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, and I just don't care anymore. They don't grab me anymore. They just feel tedious.
How do you feel about creating a character in this? Because in a lot of Lego games, kind of half the fun is the fact that there are literally sometimes like 100 characters to play as.
Well, I'm thinking
and
you can
it's
also
fun
do
to
that
kind
in
of
this.
try out each one. Are they? You think they're still going to have that?
I'm sure you can switch back and forth and play different people. I'm sure. Like that's kind of the hook of the Lego games. But
right.
Creating your own character. I mean, you've always been able to create like a custom character you could run around as, but like that being the main central idea of the game is a new twist.
Yeah.
So they are mixing it up a little bit. Like
they kind of need to.
But it's like, to me, that's more of a thing that I think I would enjoy if I was a kid, and like creating your own character like that, and like every kid has their own superhero or supervillain identity in their head, and being able to create that in a Lego game is pretty awesome. But like, for me, it's not for me. It's there's going to be tons of stuff to play this fall, and the idea of going back to play yet another Lego game is not appealing to me, no matter what the theme is, unless years and years ago when we were talking about now what they did like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We're talking at G4 about what could they do, like what would be the other things they could make Lego games out of, and I said, well, my dream Lego game that would never happen is Lego James Bond.
Ah.
But at Comic-Con, they just showed the new set of the Bond Aston Martin. It's like a collector's set, Lego set of the Bond Aston Martin.
Really?
It's a licensed thing, and I'm like, maybe.
If possible.
Like if they've gone that far, they're about to put out a Voltron Lego set. I mean,
right.
all bets are off at this point. I may have to eat my words at this time, like 6 years later. So a Lego James Bond would absolutely get me back in, but that's about it.
Can you think of another developer that has made more money just reskinning the same game than Traveler's Tales?
Capcom. Street Fighter.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the volume of what Traveler's Tales has done.
I mean, you think about the money it's made off of these games.
Look at that Street Fighter collection.
Yeah.
I mean, they changed it up here and there, but the first 6 games are just the Street Fighter 2 engine redone over and over.
No, you're right. I just wonder, especially because the market was much
SNK.
smaller back then.
Yeah,
I mean, think about the money generated now by games.
Yeah, I mean, but again, I mean, the reuse of assets goes way back.
Yeah.
I mean, that Morrigan sprite.
Yeah.
Lasted what 20 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. Like they milked that sprite's from like 1995.
Yeah.
And she made it all the way up to Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Like that's the first time I think they redid her outside of the Capcom vs. SNK games.
It's crazy.
Whoever drew that should have gone for royalties.
They probably didn't get them.
No, got nothing, I'm sure.
Let's see what else. Spyro Trilogy is now announced as coming to Switch and PC. That was actually leaked, I believe, a day or two ago, but now there's confirmation it's on the official website for the game. Mm-hmm. Based upon how well Crash did, why would you not have it on every flipping platform that you can?
No, as long as it's not a problem to port, why not?
It was also announced at Comic-Con that you have the option to toggle between the old version of the soundtrack and the new version of the soundtrack at any time. So while you're playing, you can just switch back and forth between the music that came on the original disc and what they've kind of recreated for this new remake.
And they brought in the original composer for it.
Yeah.
Too. So,
which is kind of a cool little feature.
I mean, the fans of Spyro, I've only played the first Spyro back in the day, but fans of Spyro always talk about the music, so that seems like a pretty wise choice on their part.
Yep. Let's see what else from Comic-Con. The Walking Dead. Final seat, not at the show. We'll talk about the show here in a minute, or at least I will. You probably won't. But the Walking Dead video game from Telltale is coming up on its finale, its ultimate finale, its last season.
About frickin' time.
Yeah. I think we've talked about this before, quickly, and I think we both talked about how we've kind of fallen off with this franchise. And
I still read the comics.
Do you still read the? Are they comics or are they graphic novels?
Comics.
Are they?
Graphic novel is just a fancy way of saying comic.
I thought graphic novels were the thicker, like, book style. Really? So even those thick books are called comics?
They are comics, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, you can call them graphic
Man,
novels if you
I
want.
thought all this time that a comic was the really thin,
No, comics
and the graphic novels were the book produce
comics is comics.
Interesting. I never knew
Graphic
that.
novels is a term come up with by both the comics industry and book publishers to make them seem like adult content.
Oh, interesting.
So you would say like for a while like you would say graphic novels was like in like Barnes and Noble would be say graphic novels and you'd have the bound collections in there like that. But that's literally just sometimes they'd be called the graphic novel format, which is really just another term for trade paperback.
Okay.
But they are all comics.
Okay.
Everything is comics. Like comics is,
All
the
of it.
visual art with word balloons and the whole. They are all comics.
Okay.
And Walking Dead is absolutely a comic.
Yeah,
Also because
apparently
Walking Dead does come out as an individual issue every month, and then they collect them into the trade paperbacks, which is how I read them, or I used to. Now I just read it digitally on Comixology. But yeah. So yeah, they're comics, and
I mean, this game has very little to do with
the
comics.
The show has very little to do. This has very little to do with the comics. I mean, the comics went a completely different direction, or rather, the show.
At least the TV show has some of the same characters as the comics.
The show has the same names and vaguely similar settings in places. This is a completely different story that clearly just takes place in the same world.
Right.
Which is fine. That's a more freeing. Gives you a lot more freedom in terms of storytelling and character work. So I definitely support that. 'Cause it certainly worked out quite well for them. Here's a fun fact. So back in the early '90s, Marvel Comics canceled the Transformers tie-in comic because it had been selling dismal sales. It was selling like 70,000 copies a month.
Which now would be great sales.
Walking Dead sells that every month, and it's
Right.
the number 6 or 7 comic every month.
Yeah,
so
comics
like
have
that is
really-
how much that market has shrunk.
Yeah.
So as big as Comic-Con is, comics are a dying medium.
Well, the funny part is if Comic-Con, a lot of people complain about Comic-Con that it's moved away from being about comics.
Well, I'll complain about that all day if you want me to, but you just can't argue with the success of it.
But the truth of the matter is, would Comic-Con even exist still if it was only about comics at this point?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, it hasn't been for a long. I mean, it's not like back in the '90s.
By the first time
it's not like
I
back
went
in the '90s,
there,
they
it wasn't about comics.
Well, no, it wasn't like that. I mean, Star Wars had comics, but Star Wars was a big presence at the one I went to in 1996. There were people running around dressed as Doctor Who and Daleks. I mean, it had become a science fiction convention and a nerd convention beyond just the scope of comics. It was just sort of, the biggest one. And the biggest, and it evolved out of the fact that like the other thing was San Diego, for whatever reason, because of how it was organized, because of the weather, because of the timing, because of the longevity. It's been around since the early '70s. Some people may have seen that an old picture of Stan Lee from the '70s where he's got like a leisure suit on and like no shirt and his bushy chest hair.
Yeah, I've seen that photo.
That's from Comic-Con. That's from Comic-Con like 1974.
Wow.
Or something like 73, 74.
Wow.
So Comic-Con goes back a long time, and as you can see from him being at that thing, the celebrity comic people would show up. It became a destination for the big names to be at. And that just kind of continued until they decided to promote Sam Raimi's Spider-Man there in 2000. And that got really good buzz, and the movie was a giant hit, and Hollywood decided this is where we promote our nerd stuff now.
Yeah.
They are starting to slow down on that a little bit. That bubble kind of popped with Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Because Scott Pilgrim was the buzz of that
man,
Comic-Con.
I was at that Comic-Con.
And it did nothing.
I was
the
at
box
that
office.
Comic-Con. That whole town
It was
Scott
Pilgrim, the city.
Everywhere.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
everywhere. You couldn't go to a party without Scott Pilgrim stuff showing up.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't sponsored by Scott Pilgrim. It was just, that was everywhere.
And then the movie tanked.
Yeah, the movie did not
And
do
that was the cautionary tale for all the studios.
Yeah, that was the moment where everybody's sort of like, oh, okay, maybe we need to rethink. And they're not pulling out or anything.
Well, I think
and
there was a
now they're
period
arguing whether
there.
they're going to move it to Vegas.
Yeah.
Then it's funny because like when you talk about moving to Vegas, people talk about how people complain like, oh, if you move it to Vegas, part of its identity is in San Diego, so you move it to another city, that convention is no longer be the same convention. I'm like, man, the San Diego Comic-Con died in 2001.
Right, yeah.
Like the people that started that convention and went to it for 20, 30 years, like don't recognize it anymore.
And they probably don't go either.
So you're literally just moving a corporate event, more or less,
Yeah.
to a venue that can handle it. Although there's a ballot measure in November in San Diego to earmark more funding to convince Comic-Con to stay.
Oh, really?
Longer.
I think for a lot of people to go to Comic-Con, it's really just a chance to see celebrities in the flesh.
Yeah, I mean,
Where they guaranteed they know they're going to see them. Because people come to LA, and I would say probably 80% of the people who come to visit me here from somewhere else before they leave, we do see at least one celebrity.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
between
like
going to restaurants and going out in Hollywood.
You're not waiting 12 hours in line for Hall H to see the Supernatural panel because you want to find out what the new season's about.
Right.
You want to see Sam, Dean, and Castiel standing together with your own eyes.
It's bizarre to me how much people care about just seeing a celebrity. Yeah. And maybe part of it just living in LA where you see them all the time and you just don't care, and or you work with them and you realize they're just some dude or just some girl.
Well, you remember the time a few years ago when somebody, there was a dispute over seats and somebody stabbed the other person in the eye with a pen?
I was there. I was at that Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't you stabbing with a pen,
was it? Definitely not. I do not give a crap about celebrities. Zero, zilch, none. But yeah, it's been...
Is there no weird celebrity that we could suddenly bring in here and you would freak out about anyone? DJ
honestly,
person or a skating person?
It would be someone that most people wouldn't care about.
Right.
Yeah. If Rodney Mullen, if he walked in the door, I would immediately get up out of this chair and go over and say hello to him. But most of the people that I would do that for are people that the average person would be like, who the hell is that?
Well, to be fair, a lot of the people that people are doing this for at Comic-Con are people that most people would say, who the hell is that?
No, you're right.
Most people don't know who the guys on Supernatural are. I mean, it's a big hit show. Yeah. But the majority, only 10 million people or so watch that show. There's 320 million people in the country. There's 340 million. Most people don't know who those people are.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about what's important to you. I would never wait in line I might wait in line to hang out with somebody like that, but you're never going to do that because that's not how that works.
Yeah.
I don't care about just seeing someone on a stage there. And if I was going to do that,
you saw them with your own eyes, Matt.
Yeah, but the other thing is if you're just going to sit up there and answer questions,
you breathe the same air they were breathing, man.
You know, one of the most biggest celebrity in person things I've ever done was when I went on a trip to New York my senior year of high school with the drama class, and we saw Broadway shows, and the first one we went to was Beauty and the Beast, and Belle's father was played by Tom Bosley. The father.
A lot of people watching this right now
don't know who the hell that is.
No idea who Tom Bosley is.
Mr. Cunningham from Happy Days. And there was this moment where I'm like, Mr. C is right there. It blew my mind that Mr. Tom Bosley was performing in front of me.
Yeah, yeah.
And that whole week was like that. And we went to see Laughter on the 23rd Floor. Nathan Lane was the lead, and one of the other newspaper reporter guys was the guy who played Cousin Larry on Perfect Strangers. And I was like, oh my God, it's Cousin Larry. So to me, it's exciting to see celebrities perform in front of me. To just see them sit at a table and talk about their job is not that interesting to me. Yeah. I would like to see them perform. And that's a cool thing here. You can go see Ed Asner in a stage show about twice a year in LA. I mean, Ed Asner, no one knows who Ed
everyone's
Asner
like,
is.
who the hell's Ed Asner?
To me, he's the boss from the Mary Tyler Moore Show. To you, he may have been a bad guy on Captain Planet, depending on your age.
Maybe.
I don't know who you would know Ed Asner as at this point.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's the grumpy Jedi Master in Knights of the Old Republic.
All right.
Master Vrook, I think was his name.
There you go. Let's get through the other game stuff before we move on to some pop culture stuff. Shadow of the Tomb Raider's having a panel tomorrow. I guess that makes sense because there are Tomb Raider movies.
Yeah. And what else does Square have to show? I mean, they sure as hell didn't show any Marvel games.
I mean, yeah, you're right. What's up with the Marvel Avengers game?
Show me something.
Yeah. Had you said you thought maybe they might show it at Comic-Con?
Yeah, I thought they might show it at Comic-Con just because there'd been activity and Joe Russo had shown up to E3 and it felt like they were warming up to something, and it's been a couple years. Get on with it.
It's funny.
I mean, Crystal Dynamics is working on it, so maybe they're waiting to get Rise of the Tomb Raider out, or Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I can't even keep track. Is she rising? Is she shading? Is she becoming the Tomb Raider? Is she the Tomb Raider yet? Does she have a second gun yet? No. I'm going to enjoy it and sneak around and kill people from bushes, but I mean, seriously, is she the Tomb Raider yet? No.
But it is funny. I mean, this is where you kind of see bumper marketing taking hold, because if Tomb Raider had never had a movie, Tomb Raider would not be at Comic-Con right now. So this is a case where you have a property that's a video game property, you somehow get movies made based upon the property, and suddenly this...
Somehow is a good choice of word there.
Exactly.
Because Lara Croft is not a character when you think about it. She's like a pair of cargo shorts and boobs that is an excuse to jump on things. there's nothing there. Like, it's not like you be like, we want to adapt the rich story of Tomb Raider into a cinematic. Like, there's nothing there.
Well, they've been trying to do that with the last few games, at least.
They do that with Hitman all the time too. Agent 47 is not a character.
No, but it is funny how once you make a movie, all of a sudden things like Comic-Con open up just for the game. Because the Tomb Raider movie came out, what, 2 months ago, something like that?
That was longer ago.
I mean, it's not like they're going to have like a panel for it, but here they are having a panel for Tomb Raider at Comic-Con because there was a movie.
Well, also, like, the San Diego Comic-Con has expanded to include pretty much every element of geekdom and nerddom, and so, like, you can do video game panels there.
Yeah, I think actually Smash Brothers is at Comic-Con.
Nintendo's been at Comic-Con for years.
Well,
Nintendo goes to Comic-Con. They don't go to Tokyo Game Show, but they go to Comic-Con.
Which is really weird. Although I think Nintendo's going to be at TGS this year.
Yeah.
Not in official capacity.
Not official, but they're going to do some stuff.
They're actually going to be there for like the first time.
Because normally it was like, I remember like they showed the Wii off for the first time. It was still codename Revolution. They're like, oh, we're just going to have an event coincidentally the same week as this. Like, they wouldn't admit it.
When all the Western journalists are in town. And
it's just like, because it's TGS. And we're all like, no, we just thought we'd do it. Oh, it's nice that it's
just
like,
worked out that way. Yeah, that's not how
X-Play didn't have their Game of the Year show the same week as the VGAs.
The
VGAs for no reason either.
Yeah,
come on.
it just worked out that way.
We know what the score is, please.
Let's see, and then lastly, there's a Blizzard panel that happens tomorrow, which I'm guessing will mostly be Overwatch. I think they're unveiling a new character, maybe?
I don't know. They just unveiled the hamster.
Yeah, I think that launched yesterday.
Did it?
The new character? Yeah, I think it did. But I think they're announcing something for Overwatch at the Blizzard panel.
Also, they're about to hit the finals.
Right.
The Overwatch League finals next week, I think.
Yeah. Which, how those have been doing? I know the initial foray into esports for Overwatch did not go well. Has it gotten better?
In the sense of viewership?
Viewership and quality, being able to follow the matches.
I have some trouble trying to follow. I mean, I don't have trouble following the matches in terms of what's happening in the actual match, but their scoring system is very arcane to me because it's not based on how many matches you win. It's based on how many ticks of the objective thing you accomplish, and like that's weird to me. I'm like, why isn't it just you won?
Yeah.
And so you win. And then like you can have ties, which I think is strange, and like. And they never, like, because everyone watching for the most part understands what's happening, so they never have a moment where they sit down and just be like, oh, by the way, the scoring system works like this, this, and this. They never do that. So I just sort of sit there and hope I understand. I'm like, I don't know, those guys won. Sure, I'll go with that. So that's a little annoying to me, but like I can follow the general match play.
Yeah.
Viewership, they seem to get about 100,000 for the most part. I imagine that's been going up because now the semifinals are in play, the playoffs are in play. But I haven't been paying a ton of attention. My girlfriend's been out of town, so
you're out of the loop.
That means I'm not exposed to it the way I normally am. I'll probably watch the finals just to see what happens.
Yeah, I guess the one caveat with us talking about Comic-Con so much is that nobody can watch any of this. Like, you'll get the stuff, we'll curate all the stuff that comes out of the show, but like the panels, all that stuff, you can't watch any of that.
Oh, no.
There's no live stream for Comic-Con, which is really weird.
Well,
at this point,
we had that fight with them a lot.
Yeah.
When we, because G4 was the official partner,
broadcast partner, yeah.
And we wanted to show some of these things, and that was the whole thing. Is like the organizers of it insist that if you broadcast or live stream the stuff, you lose what's special about it, and people won't want to come anymore. And
that's probably true.
I don't think it is because of the exact thing you said, where people line up for hours to see their celebrities. That doesn't go away if you're. But I would pay like a nominal fee to watch the panels, just because one of the reasons I don't go to Comic-Con is because I would like to watch the panels, but I don't want to sit in line for 4 hours for everything.
Maybe Comic-Con does something where they set up a pay-per-view. Blizzard's done pay-per-views before, and you have to pay and you can watch the panels.
Also, BlizzCon is live streamed to hell and back, and people go to that.
Right, that's a good point. That's true.
Part of that is because everybody wants those super valuable codes and tchotchke gift bags and stuff. Yeah. But I feel like there's more. You don't travel across the country or from another country to go to Anaheim and see this thing if you just wanted a bag with a panda pet in it. Like, there's more to it than that. There's the experience of being there and doing that, and I don't think that goes away, even if you can watch a panel about Doctor Who on your laptop. Like, because look, I'm not going at all and spending any money at all on Comic-Con right now. Like, the only way you're getting it is either you cut attendance by like 2/3, or you let me just pay to watch these things online.
Yeah, could be a whole other revenue stream for
absolutely
Comic-Con.
Should be.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who live all around the country who can't afford to spend like
thousands
of dollars.
Thousands of dollars.
And then you go in and you spend another couple $100 on stuff that you wanted to buy.
Including food.
It's not a cheap trip. Although it is San Diego, which is, you could con the wife into saying, we're going on a vacation to San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego, spend a decoy night or two in Coronado.
Right.
And it's like,
decoy night, the camo night.
Well, as long as we're here, here's a badge. Ta-da.
All right, let's talk. So that's pretty much all the game stuff that's going on. It's kind of light for Comic-Con, I think. Usually it seems like there's more. Resident Evil 2 is there as well, but they're showing the same stuff that they did at E3.
Yeah, I mean, there usually isn't a whole lot of game news coming out of Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I remember one year, Capcom's plan for Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Ultimate, I think it was to announce all the new DLC characters, or the new characters for the second version of that at Comic-Con, and then the key art leaked through their own website because somebody put it in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Oh, they were so mad. Because they couldn't get mad at anyone because they screwed it
up.
They
made the mistake, yeah.
And
well, they got mad at one person.
Yeah, whoever that was. Yeah, I did make the mistake because Phoenix Wright and all these, and I texted Seth Killy, and I was just like, oh, that's so cool. He's like, yeah, it's
real
great.
Cool, bro.
Super cool. Would have been cooler an hour from now. And I'm like, sorry. Well, you probably don't want to hear about that right now.
Let's talk quickly about some TV and movie stuff. Pretty much the biggest story from Comic-Con actually had very little to do with Comic-Con, and that's that James Gunn has been fired as the director of what's the franchise again?
Guardians of
the Galaxy 3. He had directed the first two. First one did amazing. Second one did even better. Third one's probably would have done better.
Yeah.
But they went back and
probably
dug up.
Still will, really.
They went back and dug up a bunch of his old tweets.
Well, not they.
Well,
the guy who came
when
up
I say they, that could be anybody.
Well, it's the guy who invented the Pizzagate thing.
Oh.
The thing where Hillary Clinton was running a child trafficking ring out of a pizzeria.
Pizza joint, yeah.
Is the same guy. He went back and found a bunch of really vile tweets by James Gunn from 2009. Like a lot. It's not like one or two. It's like dozens and dozens.
I don't know if you guys remember or not.
I don't know why that was.
I have talked on this show about James Gunn.
Yeah, you have mentioned
because
that before.
I worked with him for about a year and a half. Had a couple of meetings with him. We did this show. I was running Spike.com, and we did a show called PG Porn. Again, I've talked about it on the show. Go watch it. Find it. It's hilarious. We were doing this show with him, and then we went to CES in AVN and worked with him for a week straight. And AVN is like a big porn convention that they have while CES is going on right next to CES. It's the weirdest thing ever. And I worked with him for a week, and I was like, holy cow, this guy's crazy. Like, he's a maniac. And I kind of knew that already. Just talking to him on the phone, he's very aggressive, and he would if we would say, hey, we need to cut this shot because Standards and Practices says we can't run it as is, he would call Standards and Practices and get in arguments with him, blah, blah, blah. So I always knew he was a loose cannon. Having worked with him at a porn convention, I also knew that his humor was a little bit off-kilter and a little ribald, to put it nicely. And I was shocked to find out that he was going to direct a huge film basically for Disney. Because I knew he had a sordid past.
Well, anyone who watched Super would not be surprised at the type of humor that's in this. My question is, how do you not go back and wipe all of that the instant you get a job for Disney?
I mean, we went to that porn convention to shoot fun segments or whatever. Every single person knew him by name.
Of course.
Usually when you're a producer and you're working with talent, you have to walk up, you have to say, hey, this is my talent, this is blah, 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 he's going to do an interview. Everybody was just like, James, and would just give him a hug. I'm like, he knows everybody in porn already. I should have known that because he got real porn actors to work in PG porn.
That's true.
But we went in there and everybody knew him. It's like he was a part of the industry. And I was like,
to be fair, we know other people who everyone would know at those conventions.
Yeah, probably.
You cover that stuff long. I mean, I don't know what he was doing there. I assume.
We were promoting PG porn.
Yeah.
Like, it was basically like a big marketing thing where we just went around and did fun segments as promotional marketing.
I mean, also, if you live in the Valley or in the LA area, you're going to know porn actors.
Yeah, you're right.
I knew a whole bunch of them when I lived up in Woodland Hills in the Valley. You just meet them. They're your neighbors.
Yeah, it's a big industry here.
Yeah.
Or in the Valley, at least it is. So I'm not surprised at all that this happened. At all. I'm shocked that it didn't happen earlier. I'm also
Well, I'm
shocked,
shocked
like
that,
you said, why did he not go back and clean all that up? Not that somebody couldn't have gone back and still got that stuff. They could have
Right.
used Google Cache or whatever and still found
But
it.
still.
It would have taken a lot more work to
Would
get.
have been harder, yeah. And
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It's just, I mean, Disney had to know when. I mean, they do their research.
I
on these
knew
people.
who James Gunn was. How did they
But
not know?
well, also like he hasn't done that in a long time. He's a very different person now than he was, say, like 2011 or so.
Yeah, that's about when it was.
Yeah, we did stuff with him for Lollipop Chainsaw, and he was the same kind of, he was a very raunchy dude. It was a different time, I guess, and you can tell, like when you look at the tweets, they're vile and really gross, and they're not funny.
Yeah.
But like you can tell, he's just trying to be provocative. He's trying to shock you.
Well, that was his excuse that he replied with, is that I thought of myself as a provocateur.
Provocateur.
Yeah, I can't believe I
I
can't
thought
say that.
his apology was pretty solid. I mean, it wasn't an I apologize if I offended you thing. It was like, I screwed up and I accept the consequences and I'm going to be better and I apologize to everybody and I'm out.
I mean, I'll put it to you this way. The amount of money he's made off those last couple films, I know for a fact that when I worked with him, he never could have dreamed he would ever make that kind of money.
Oh, he has no. I mean, I ran into him at a Christmas party, the Christmas before Guardians 1 came out, and I asked him like, how's it going on the thing? Because I was curious. Like, this guy has suddenly elevated this level. Guardians is a completely unknown property, even to me as someone who was a huge comic book nerd. I had to look up what Guardians of the Galaxy was when they announced it. And he's like, yeah, we're in post, we're working on it, it's going pretty well. I think it's good. And I'm like, do you have to do like certain things? He's like, they're letting us do whatever we want. And I don't understand it. Like he's like weird. He's like there's no like he was like we're working on it and I hope it's good. I hope you like it. I hope it's good. Like he was super humble about it.
Just to let you know the level he was on when I was working with him. And
he was not at all like when we interviewed him for Lollipop Chainsaw.
Yeah.
Because then he was like, yeah, we're all dudes. We're all gonna make some crazy stuff. He's the super indie filmmaker. Like he's a trauma dude. It's trauma films. Like that's. They thrive. The whole kind of subculture thrives on kind of the shock jock style sort of, guts and gore and kind of like, oh, look at this. Can you believe we made this movie? Can you believe we made something like Poultrygeist and stuff like that? It's a totally different world he was in.
I mean, it was a totally different world because PG porn, like we tried it as an experiment and it just exploded. Literally, like the first episode did just like on iFilm back in the day, which was kind of the precursor to YouTube, did like 5 million views in like 3 days or whatever. And that was the litmus test before we decided what we were going to pay him. And after that blew up, he calls me and he's like, hey, we want 10,000 per episode. And I laughed. I was like, dude, who are you talking to? Like, it's digital. Like, you know how many ads we have to serve to get that money back? And he's like, okay. He's like, well, just do the best you can. He's like, I trust you. And I was like, okay. So I went and talked and like looked at the budget that we had. And I was like, okay, the max we can probably give him is like $3,000 per app. And even that was like pushing it hardcore. And so I call him back. I'm like, $3,000 per episode. He's like, $3,000? Hell yeah! He was stoked over $3,000. And that was literally like 2009 to like 2011, 2012. That was not that long ago, man, that we were working with him, and he was happy with that amount of money.
Yeah. Well,
I'm that surprised. Is how his start. So to him, I'm sure he's just like, bro, I'm paying with house money. I can't even imagine how much money he's made off those last two films.
I'm a little surprised that Disney reacted. I mean, on one hand, look, if I was in charge at Disney, I probably wouldn't have hired him in the first place. If you do your research on that, like I was like, oh, this isn't really our brand. Or if we did hire him, I'd be like, okay, you got to purge that. You got to clean up your feed. You got to, because if this comes out eventually, like you're not a very Disney friendly creature at this point. But like, you had to know what his deal was in the first place, and like they clearly like his work to the point that he was the first director in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to ever get his name above the title.
Right.
They if you watch Guardians of the Galaxy, the credits listed as a James Gunn film. And no one had ever gotten that credit before in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they didn't even tell him they were doing it. They just put it up, and the first time he saw it was when he saw like one of the early screenings, and he's like, "Oh my, like where'd that come?" They're like, "Well, it was your movie in such a solid way. We thought it should be called a James Gunn film." And I'm like, it's weird that they wouldn't be ready to face a little bit of backlash in the name of that. But it's so many of the jokes and weird things he said and like gross things he said were about children.
Yeah.
I feel like they just didn't.
No,
have a
they had to
choice.
get rid of him. There's no debate about that.
That's a very hard spin.
Yeah. So that's one of the stories that's kind of come out of Comic-Con. Personally,
That had nothing to do with Comic-Con. Really.
It really didn't. It just happened during
He was
Comic-Con.
there, and he was supposed to be at the Sony panel tonight, and they announced he's not going to be, which is not a shock to anybody.
And then all the other stuff came out.
And no, the announcement he's not going to be at the panel was after all that. It was at like 3:30 today. Because he had a panel at 6:15 tonight, which I guess already didn't, because he's just going to be at the Sony panel to talk about some indie movie he's been producing.
Yeah.
It's not even his direction. He's not even directing it.
Yeah.
My other question is, does this affect his brother, Sean Gunn, who does all of the mocap work not mocap work, but he does the performance of Rocket on set. He's the body, that basically is there interacting with the other actors as Rocket, and they use his performance as sort of a physical model for how to animate the character. And anyone who knows how important, like, say, Peter Mayhew is to how Chewbacca moves, knows that if you change, or Andy Serkis as anyone,
you're an actor.
If you change that actor, that character is going to feel different.
Yeah.
And so I hope that Disney doesn't also sever ties with Sean, because I don't see why they should.
Possible.
I mean, I have no idea. Maybe they
guilt by association.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe they make all the same jokes. I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? But like, I would hope that Sean Gunn would still continue to get to mocap Rocket, because Rocket is, I think, an exceptionally well-realized character, and be ashamed to kind of disrupt that already. Then it's already going to be disrupted by having to find a new director for Guardians 3. Yeah. I would like to see them offer to Taika Waititi, who directed Ragnarok, but I feel like he might be done. He really seemed to indicate that Ragnarok was this one shot of the Marvel movies, and he might come back to be Korg, the rock guy, because he played Korg, the rock guy in Ragnarok. He might come back to do that. I don't know if he'd be up for coming back to direct a whole new movie, but I think he would nail the tone in a similar way. But we might see Guardians 3 get pushed now, because
undoubtedly it's going to be pushed.
Well, Gunn did write this script, and apparently that's done, but I feel like they're probably not going to want to use his work now. So
that would be dumb.
I don't know. They might just not want his name on that at all. I mean, you could probably negotiate with a Writers Guild somehow to take his name off it. Because
I'm sure he'll be happy to take the money that he gets paid for the script still.
Sure.
Selfishly, the only thing that really came out of Comic-Con for me, pop culture-wise, that I noticed is some information about the TV show The Walking Dead. I know you don't watch it. And honestly, a lot of people don't watch it anymore. They've kind of fallen off. And I would agree. I think The Walking Dead has become a not good television show.
Well, it's a mercy killing at this point that they're ending it after this season, probably.
Well, they haven't announced that they're ending it after this season, but two of the biggest stars...
If Rick leaves, the show's over.
Rick is leaving.
Yeah, the show's over.
Yeah.
Like, even the creator of the comics said, like, the story is Rick. Like, the story is about Rick's life.
Well, Rick is still going in the comics.
Yeah, but like that's the thing. It's like this comic will end when Rick dies. That's it. And so if Rick goes away from the show, I feel like you've lost your center.
Well, Norman Reedus just signed a $20 million contract.
Oh, boy.
So what's going to happen is Rick's going to be killed off. Also, Maggie apparently is not re-signing after. Do you remember Maggie?
Vaguely.
She may not even be in the comics. I don't know.
She is in the comics, but I mean, at this point, nothing in the comics helps you know anything about the show. Like,
she's become like the backup leader behind Rick at this point.
Okay.
And so she's a big part of the show. And she's apparently one more season and gone. And she has like some other gig or whatever.
Well, they're on season 9?
I think it's coming up, season 9. So it looks like Norman Reedus is going to end up becoming like the new Rick or whatever, or take the lead on the show. I don't know. But to be honest with you, The Walking Dead, for me personally, has just been getting almost unwatchable. I still do watch it every week.
I bailed out at the beginning of season 2.
The Farm, a lot of people did.
No, the episode where they spent the whole hour trying to get a zombie out of the well.
Oh yeah, I remember
that was the one that, and they're like, oh, we can't break it or damage it because it's a corpse in the water. It's already contaminated, you weirdos. Like, and then they freak out because they break it in half and the whole thing like goops into the water.
It is gross. I remember that
gross,
scene.
But it's like none of this makes any freaking sense. Like there's a corpse in the water. Like you're all gonna get dysentery or something. Like you can't do that.
Fear the Walking Dead, though, on the other hand, I think is a really good show, and it's undoubtedly become way better than the original. and that's
I've
going
never
to keep
seen any
going.
of that.
It's really good. It started slow. Now I think it's
Is
way
that the one
way
in
better.
L.A.?
It started in LA,
Okay.
but it's all over the Western Seaboard. It's like LA, San Diego, Mexico, like this whole kind of area,
I don't think
Arizona.
anyone calls it the Western Seaboard. That's an Eastern thing.
Did I make that up?
Yeah. It's just the West Coast. Eastern
Nice.
Seaboard is a different. That's an East Coast thing.
Well, now we know. We live on the Western Seaboard.
Is that how-
We'll have to look that up on Google.
I've never
later.
heard anyone call it that.
Yeah.
So I think I think the transplant is
It's possible.
bringing some terminology west here.
It could. But other than that, nothing else that came out of Comic-Con really caught my eye. What about anything that kind of stood out for you?
No, I mean Hot Toys showed some cool stuff. I'm probably gonna buy that Hot Toys Shuri figure.
Any film announcements or anything that you?
I mean,
were surprised
I will
by it?
probably see Overlord. It's just the right amount of dumb. That's just a J.J. Abrams. I don't know if he's directing. I think he's producing it. But basically, it's World War II, D-Day. Everybody parachutes in and storms the beach, and the Nazis are they get lost or whatever, and they find like a Nazi like secret lab thing, and they're making Nazi zombies and monsters and weird shit, and it's like a horror movie with Nazi monsters.
It almost sounds like
cool.
Cabin in the Woods a little bit.
A little bit. It's a little bit of Frozen Dead, which is I think
Which I just spoiled, by the way. By
which I
saying
think
that.
is the Frozen Dead is an old, I think 60s Nazi zombie movie, kind of the seminal Nazi zombie movie. I'm pretty sure that's where they got Treyarch got the idea from. I don't know. It looked like Pacific Rim. It looks like just the right amount of dumb with the concept that makes me go ooh kind of thing. So that was cool.
What's like the big film from Comic-Con? Is there anything that's being premiered? Like, what about the new Godzilla movie? Are they showing that there?
No, they already did show some screenings of that.
Did they?
Apparently, it's better.
That's encouraging.
I mean, I like the 2014 one, but it's like it was
Yeah.
a standard Godzilla. It's a very middle of the road Godzilla movie, which
Yeah.
is all I wanted.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
That's the whole thing about Godzilla is you spend an hour and a half watching bad actors do things that you don't care about to watch half an hour of monsters.
Yeah.
Apparently, the new one is much more even split between like more like 50% dumb plot stuff and 50% monster awesome.
Yeah.
So that's all I ask.
Yeah.
Improve every time. Put King Ghidorah in there. I'm in. No problem. It's got to be better than Skull Island. Hated Skull Island.
What's the big superhero movie at Comic-Con this year?
I don't know.
There isn't one.
Well, I mean, it'd be Aquaman.
Oh, that's
is
right,
going to be
yeah.
shown heavily. They will probably show a fair amount, some new more Captain Marvel stuff. Maybe we'll see there might be a teaser for Captain Marvel that then we don't get to see in public for a few months or something like that. That Marvel tends to show stuff like that. Maybe we'll see some footage from Wonder Woman 84, since that I think is in principal photography, so they might have something to show from that. Obviously, there's a lot of DC stuff they're showing because of the new streaming service they're starting.
Right.
They showed the live-action Titans based on Teen Titans, headed by Jeff Johns. Reaction to that has been pretty much universally negative. It's weird, dark, gritty nonsense, R-rated stuff. There's the thing with Robin is he kills a whole bunch of thugs and then goes fuck Batman after he snaps a man's neck. I'm like, okay, like it's becoming very hard to tell you the difference between you and like a fan film from 1997.
Yeah.
But okay. Also, like the idea that they're using that as their flagship content to launch a $75 a year streaming service is a little questionable. I was kind of hoping they might show something of the Blu-ray release of Batman the Animated Series, which is due in September, which is supposed to be a very beautiful remaster of the whole series. Remember when DC animation looked good? Young Justice, speaking of DC animation, there's a lot of that. That's one of the big things I've seen. They're going to show some stuff.
There are so many freaking panels at Comic-Con.
Oh, it goes on and on and
It's
on.
insane.
And on.
It's like every day there's like 30.
Chris Gore announced a Kickstarter for a documentary about G4, Attack of the Dock.
There you go. Where's the? It's on
It's
Kickstarter.
on Kickstarter, yeah.
There you go. Go donate for people.
Yeah, if anybody's got $100,000 laying around.
And wants to see it, or you can just watch GameFace. I mean, really, if you need a documentary about G4 and Tech TV, you've pretty much got the inside scoop watching this show.
This looks like it's focusing more on Attack of the Show.
Yeah, which is a show that he was a part of.
Yes.
Yeah. Which still makes sense.
But I would argue that X-Play influenced more because it defined kind of how you present video games in a video context.
Absolutely. They didn't start doing sketches and all that crap until they saw what we were doing.
Oh, they made fun of it. The idea of humor in gaming coverage was weird when we started doing it.
Yeah, it still is weird.
And I'm not saying we're the funniest.
No one else has done it.
Tons of people have done it.
Like what?
Mega 64. Giant Bomb trades very hard on kind of the humor aspect of things.
Yeah, but they don't do like sketches with like wardrobe and makeup and props.
But Mega 64 does.
Yeah, kinda.
Oh yeah. Oh, they do tons of stuff like that. I mean, some of it's more like kind of like reality show prank style.
Right.
But look, one of the greatest moments in video game comedy remains when the Mega 64 guys went out as Ryo from Shenmue.
Yeah.
In the full costume.
They've done a ton of funny things.
Asking the questions, and the one woman asks him if he got separated from his group.
Yeah.
That is one of the hardest things. I've laughed harder at that than almost any other comedic related thing in gaming.
Yep. So that's Comic-Con. Not huge for games. Not really huge for movies this year, it doesn't seem like either.
They've dialed back. Also, we're kind of in a weird moment where the DC Cinematic Universe is sort of doesn't know what it's doing right now. They've got Aquaman, and we're going to see how that goes. I mean, that comes out on the same day as two other big blockbusters. I don't know what they're thinking. Same day in December 21st, I think it is, you have Aquaman, Bumblebee, which is also a big deal.
Which looks good to me.
Looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It's by the guy who directed Kubo and the Two Strings, an actual human being that knows what empathy is.
I'm just probably so desperate for a not crappy Transformers movie that anything like that would look good.
I think this will not be crappy. I think it's very far removed from Michael Bay, and I think
it doesn't look like a Michael Bay film at all. I think the director is like, I'm going to make sure that people know.
He more or less has said that. He's like,
I saw the first trailer for that, and I was like, wow,
more or less is like, we're making a real movie.
This is what they should have been making all along.
Of course.
Yeah.
one of the main bad guys is a Plymouth muscle car.
Yeah.
Turns into a robot that's voiced by Angela Bassett. Movie's going crazy. We don't know. And then the third thing coming out that day is Alita Battle Angel.
I haven't heard of that.
That's James Cameron was originally going to make that. Now I think it's Robert Rodriguez now. But it's based on a manga anime. And it's like, you know it if you've seen the trailer. It's like she's a live action movie, but the main character is like an android, like a battle angel Alita. She's a.
I have not seen it.
She's an android war machine basically, but she looks like a little girl, like a teenage girl, and they've CG'd the actress so her eyes are like the size of an anime character.
Oh my god!
Freaking weird looking.
That sounds kind of awesome, actually.
Now the downside is that all three of these movies are competing with them against each other on that day, and a week before that, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse comes out, which is an animated movie focusing on Miles Morales' version of Spider-Man, and I think that, first off, that's going to make tons of money, and I think it's going to steamroll all three of those movies the following week. Yes.
I think it looks cool, but I don't know about that.
No, I think it's going to crush everything in its path.
Interesting.
Everything in its path.
Animated, adult.
Animated, adult-focused. But here's the thing, also starring Miles Morales. Like the people have wanted to see a Miles Morales-focused movie for years. There were people lobbying for him to be the Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and here he is.
Yeah.
Here he is. Like it's focused on him and his family and the different version of Spider-Man that he represents. And yes, they're bringing in other versions of Spider-Man from the other Spider-Verses, but he's the central character. And I think people are going to rally around, his fan base will rally around that. People are going to, as long as it's a good movie, and there's no reason to think it wouldn't be because it's not the usual Sony people doing it. It's the animation department.
Right.
As long as they get something good out of this thing, I think it's going to have more legs and more mainstream appeal than anything coming out the following week. Although of those three, I would expect Bumblebee to win.
The trailer's freaking awesome for that.
Oh, it looks great.
I was sold watching it, yeah. So, if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out.
So, oddly enough, it's a very busy December.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, December is
even without a Star Wars movie this time.
It's when I go see a lot of movies. Yeah. So I gotta go home to central Pennsylvania. There's not a lot to do. There's not. Literally, you can't hang out there at Christmas time for more than 3 hours at one location without somebody suggesting, let's go see a movie.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. Whether you're hanging out with your family, your wife's family, your friends.
It's like it buys us 2 hours to not have to talk to each other.
After a couple hours, someone will say, anyone want to go see blah, blah, blah. It's just, there's just nothing to do there.
It's also like buys you like 2 hours, you don't have to talk to each other.
I don't get to see my family, so every minute counts for me when I go home. But yeah, it's definitely a little odd.
I mean, it happens. I mean, when I was up north in June, one of the first things I ended up doing was going to see Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah.
Which was not the greatest use of 2 hours of my time, but
I can see that. Not the movie. I can see it not being the best 2 hours of your time.
yeah, the movie was not good.
Yeah, I kind of figured it wouldn't be.
I mean, it's a Jurassic Park sequel. What do you expect?
Yep. All right, let's move on. We're going to get back to video games. We're going to talk about something that's we've talked about on the show before, and Matt and I are kind of in the same camp on this. But this week, two gaming luminaries jumped in and started talking about it, and it's kind of changed things, and so we wanted to discuss it again, and that is game streaming. So this week, Phil Spencer and Todd Howard both came out and said that they expect and hope that game streaming ultimately becomes the standard, because they're content creators, and all that they really care about is getting their content to as many devices and platforms as possible. Mm-hmm. And so both these guys said, we think this is the future, not sure how long it's going to take before it gets there, but we think this is where it's all going, and we'll be happy when it does get to that place. And from their perspective, I can't understand it, particularly Todd Howard's perspective, because he's a third-party developer. Mm-hmm. And anytime they make a game, they have to have a different team in a lot of cases, tailor those games to those platforms. So you have to have a team that works on the Switch version at Bethesda. You have to have a team that works on the mobile version. Microsoft, not as big a deal, but as a third-party developer, Todd Howard deals with a lot of that stuff. So I can see from his perspective where he's like, really? I can make one version of the game and it works on every device? Mm-hmm. Hallelujah. I totally get that.
Well, I can't wait to see how they defy the speed of light.
Right.
Because it's never going to work.
And nothing's ever going to get faster than the speed of light.
Like, latency is always going to be a problem, and I will never choose streaming over having an actual copy on a hard drive or on a disk. Like, as simple as that. Like, you can't do that. I mean, I can't even run Batman Arkham City on my Steam Link from the other room in my networked wired house without having the latency be too bad to use the counters.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it's not going to work.
Why do you think so many people are pushing so hard for it, though?
I think because exactly what you said, it'd be easier to develop for. You only have to make the one version. It lets you distribute to basically any platform with a controller and a screen and an internet connection. Like, you can put it on anything. It's a permutation of that thing Pactor always brings up about how your console will be your TV.
The CPU, GPU thing that he talks about. But these are smart guys. So wouldn't you think that they would see, okay, if the technology is not there, and in all honesty, in America, I don't think the technology is going to be there for another, 15 years.
Well, no, because you're talking about basically replacing the American internet infrastructure.
Right.
Like the entire...
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of places in this country that just got broadband, period.
Matt, there's tons of places in this country that still do not have broadband.
Well, there was a proposal during the Obama administration to, get broadband everywhere, but that got shot down because why would we want to do that?
My dad's house, he lives out in the boonies. He still couldn't get broadband. He had satellite internet, which literally was like using a 14K modem. Yep. Like you click on something and you watch the images slowly appear. And it wasn't just him. There's just miles and miles of that territory where there's no penetration for broadband whatsoever. So going back to what I was saying about how these are very smart guys, you would think that they would see, okay, technology is not there. It's not going to be there for a long time. Why would we want to force this on our customers and give our customers a poor experience? Because ultimately that hurts our brand. It hurts all our IP. When people walk away from experiencing these and they're like, well, that was crap. Why do you think that they're pushing so hard for this? Look, I could see if 10 years from now these guys come out and start talking about this and be like, hey, it's here. Broadband penetration's where it needs to be. Everything's waiting for us to just grab the football and take it across the goal line. But that's really not where we're at. I feel like they're talking about this way before, way out of turn.
Yeah, well, they're talking about, oh, look, there's Arkham City.
Yeah, exactly. Your exact example.
I don't know. I mean, he's talking about Elder Scrolls 6 almost 10 years before we're going to see it.
Good point.
I mean, what else they got to
Maybe
talk
he's
about?
buttering us up for Elder Scrolls 6.
I don't know. I don't believe it. I just don't believe. People talk about, the latest. No, it won't. Like, it won't get any better. It will never be better than playing it locally. It will never, ever, ever be better than playing it locally.
Is your house wired with fiber?
Yeah.
It is. Oh, wow. Yeah, see,
In fact, I could have gotten Google Fiber, but I didn't know it until I'd already signed up.
Oh, really? You should probably rethink that.
When the contract's up.
Yeah. You have a contract with your ISP?
I don't know. If I cancel one thing, everything gets more expensive.
Right, because it's all bundled together.
Yeah.
That's really where they get you. It's like,
So,
we'll bundle this together and you'll save 20 bucks.
I got 300 down. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
It doesn't work. I've tried it multiple times. I've even tried it with different Steam links, and it's still a split second too slow to comfortably do the counter system properly. And that's just in a house.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain genres.
I play PS Now and stuff like that. It's like, and it works for like a slower game, a slower single-player game that doesn't require split-second stuff, like something like Uncharted. It plays fine. And yet the other thing is, like, why are they talking about this? Because the vast majority of people that play video games are never going to notice.
Never going to notice what?
The lag.
Oh, you think a lot of people would play on live or PlayStation Now?
They'll never notice the difference. Like, they don't play on a split. It's like, you try to get a bunch of Street Fighter players to play that way, it's not going to work.
Yeah, there are certain genres it's just maybe will never work. Fighting games, sports games, driving games.
I mean, do you want to play
shooters.
Overwatch like that?
No, I don't.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess if you're delivering like these weird cinematic, like, I mean, I guess I'd play like Detroit Become Human like that. Like, what's that going to change? But like,
I'm wondering if these folks are
also
Can you get
4K 60 frames a second through that kind of thing?
Right.
Like, I feel like you're taking two steps back by trying to embrace this angle.
I wonder if people like Spencer and Howard are counting on mobile bandwidth to be at a certain place.
Maybe. I mean, they may know something I don't, but so far I have not been impressed by that kind of
Well,
tech.
AT&T is just now getting ready to launch 5G. Within the next few months. Who knows if it'll be delayed or whatever. But even 5G is not.
Yeah, I mean, I still just don't believe it. I guess, okay, like you've got super fast, like literally light speed connections. Okay, you're running this thing out of a server. So the game's running on a server somewhere in the Central Valley or Bakersfield or something, and it's coming out to my house, and I have to press a button, and then that info has to go back to the server, and the server has to register it in the game and then send me back the results, and I have to see the results, and I have to process it in my brain, react to it, and press another button. It's just like, why are you adding all this communication time to what works just fine by install thing, press button, activate, works on the hard drive? There's no reason for that. There's no reason for that it benefits the consumer.
Right, yeah. No, you're right. That's the statement right there. There's no part of it that benefits the consumer.
No.
It's all to make life easier for the content creators, ultimately. And for them to make more money. Because if you don't need to have 3 teams to get one game out to market across all the platforms, you have just one team, suddenly game development costs drop precipitously.
Yeah, well, in that case, just pick a platform and stick with it.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
no one's forcing you to make a game for all 3 systems.
No one forced him to talk about the next Xbox at E3 either. I mean, if that's really what you think the future is, the Xbox One X is the last console anyone ever needs to buy.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's overkill. Like, you don't need it even. Like, I mean, I get their perspective, and I can understand it, but you're right. I feel like
it just doesn't do me any favors.
Right, it doesn't do me any good.
Yeah.
Do I really care that I can play any game on my mobile phone with a worse experience? No, I don't. Like, I would rather sit on my couch and play it and have that immediate response. I mean, I'm already to the point where, like, and I think a lot of us are, where when you buy a TV, you look at one of the big factors is, like, how many milliseconds is the lag? Like, it's funny, like, I sold a monitor on Craigslist, and one of the guys emailed me and asked me what the lag was on the monitor. He's like, I want to use this to play games. Like, what kind of lag does it have? And I was like, wow, I never guessed someone would ask me that when they're trying to buy a monitor. But so, you think stuff like that is just niche, or stuff that we talk about on GameFace or Sifted's patrons or subscribers talk about. No, like, that is something that's leaked out of our culture, and it's become a thing. Like, you look at specs for TVs now, it has the latency on there. That 3 years ago, that was never a factor. In fact, I wish it was, because I would have known that my plasma TV's delay is like the worst in the industry.
No, plasma's always worse.
Yeah, it's really terrible. But I feel like a lot of the stuff
I remember when I was trying to learn how to play Street Fighter 4 on my plasma, and I just couldn't get these like 2-frame Guile combos down.
Yeah.
At some point, I went and I played it in an arcade in Little Tokyo here, and I sat down to play, and I played, and I nailed the combo every single time. I'm like, oh my god, it's my TV.
I play
it
shooters
made a
on
difference.
my plasma TV, and I'm constantly seeing like I died, but he never fired any bullets. I go back into the back room where I just have a little IPS monitor that literally has like 8 milliseconds of lag, and I just wreck shop. Like, it's crazy how much of a difference your monitor makes. And that's also with it going through a capture card, out of the capture card into the IPS monitor. It's still way better than playing on my plasma TV. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that we think is just a part of our culture and this little thing that we have going on, a lot of that stuff is slowly leaking out and becoming a part of mainstream culture again. And I think eventually game latency will be something that will be caught on with the mainstream and not just people like us. So I feel like as more time goes on...
Particularly for people who focus on multiplayer.
Yeah, you're right. I think as more time goes on, more of the casual folks are going to get woke to a lot of the stuff that we talk about or have been dealing with for a lot of years. And I think that actually kind of spells doom for this plan that Phil Spencer and Todd Howard have. I think,
well, that's always been how I mean, the fandom starts in a certain place, but eventually people outside of that just have interest in things catch on to the lingo, catch on to the... I mean, look, it wasn't 20 years ago that if you said 16:9 to someone who watched movies all the time, they had a good chance of not knowing what you meant.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
The pan and scan widescreen debate in the VHS era. No one understood what they were looking at half the time. It was like, no, you're missing
parts of the film.
Picture. If you did it. And and then TVs change shape, and now everybody, 16:9 or 21, 21 by 7 or whatever.
Yeah, what is it?
There's a bunch of, there's tons of different aspect ratios. But people know what that is now.
Yeah.
And so and people know what 4K is now. People know that there's a difference between 4K and 4K. People know that the $300 4K television that Best Buy is trying to sell you on Black Friday when the doors open probably only does like 2K.
Right.
But
and it doesn't have HDR.
Right.
Like, a lot of people know what HDR is now.
And the consumer base becomes more and more literate, especially as these things cost more and more money.
Yeah.
And I think that's only going to continue. So,
do you see any way this can succeed?
Not without some massive infrastructure changes in America, and you could probably pull it off in like Japan or Europe, because Europe is mostly fiber by now. But like at the same time, it's like, what advantage does that give a consumer? I don't understand why that benefits me.
It doesn't.
As some. I get why something like, say, the Xbox Game Pass does, but you're downloading that and installing it.
Yeah.
It just seems like making it. It's just like saying, oh, we're just gonna downgrade your 1080p picture to 900p.
Yeah.
Like, you'll never notice the difference.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit less, but it saves us some money. It's cool. And I'm like, no, give me my full screen.
Like DirecTV. Almost everything coming through DirecTV is 720p.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, it's like, okay, I get why you want to do it, but why do I want to do it? And I've never heard a decent explanation for why I would want to do the streaming thing. Like, I get that, like, oh, you get this library and you can instantly access and da-da-da. Well, that's not a worthwhile trade-off to me.
I think ultimately America's god-awful broadband may save the world. Seriously, because it's so bad here, it may be a case where the publishers are like, we can't do this. Like, we can't cut off, like, a huge swath of the American public from buying our products. And that's what you'd be doing if gaming goes purely to streaming.
Yeah, well, maybe it could be like with Pizza Hut, where if you have bad potholes on your street, they'll fix it now. You'd be like, hey, Bethesda, we have terrible internet here, and Todd Howard will come roll out the fiber at your dad's cabin
with a big spool,
with a little hard hat on.
That's pretty funny. I saw in some
state... And it'll be
state,
like, Skyrim Super Special Edition for everyone.
Yeah.
And it'll be like, yeah.
I saw in some state that the potholes are so bad that they're planting trees in the potholes on the roads. They're literally planting trees in the middle of the road to, like, make a point.
That's a good idea for Wilshire.
Yeah. No, seriously. Potholes in LA are terrible. Especially after all the taxes that we pay. I don't know where all that money's going.
I like it when they're long enough, like, that you see weeds.
Yeah.
Like, that's
in the potholes.
I'm like, that's amazing.
A seed or a spore went in there. It got rained on, which never happens in LA.
Yeah, very rarely.
And then somehow life sprouted up. It's crazy.
Life finds a way.
Yeah. We've talked about this a bunch of times, But when I hear it coming from Phil Spencer and Todd Howard, that's when I sit up and take notice. Like these little companies like Gaikai or Sony buying Gaikai and saying, hey, we spent 20 or 30 million for this company. Let's see if we can turn it into. I get all that. When Phil Spencer and Todd Howard start talking about this stuff and say, this is what they want, this is what's coming, that's when I start to get a little nervous.
Yeah, well, Todd Howard and those guys have also talked a lot about how VR is what's coming. And we saw what happened there.
Not Spencer. Spencer's been one of the guys who stood against it.
Yeah, well, Spencer can talk all he wants, but until they do it, I mean,
or until they ship Crackdown 3.
For all, they talk. How long do you talk about Scalebound? That never happened either.
Yeah.
For all they talked about, PlayStation Now and Sony buying Gaikai, what impact has that had on anything? Nothing.
Yeah.
Do you know anyone who uses that service?
I haven't seen it. I don't know anyone who uses it, and I haven't seen any figures on how it's doing.
They don't talk about it. They don't brag about it. They don't
Yeah.
push it on you, really. Like, you just sort of scroll past the option on that side menu.
They put out a trailer every month that shows the new games that are coming to it.
But, like,
yeah.
I mean, Netflix for games is just sort of weird to me because, like...
That was kind of their point. I think that was Todd Howard's point was, wait, we have this for movies and television. It's only a matter of time until games do that.
Yeah,
it's
well,
like,
games
no.
are movies and television. And I would argue that Netflix for games and television is Game Pass.
Yeah.
Like, the ability to browse and see all these things and have access to them, but you still want to, like, install them and have the best possible experience. It's like, it's kind of the thing where it's like, Netflix is different because if your movie is lagging by 3 seconds, you're never going to know because you have to interact with it. You just watch it.
Yeah.
And then even at the same time, like, Netflix HD 4K, like, they do a pretty good job. It looks pretty good. But if I have a movie that I really love that comes out, I'm going to buy it on disc because it looks better.
It absolutely does.
It will look better.
I mean, you compare, like, a Blu-ray to DirecTV.
Oh, well, that's not even...
It's insane what a difference it is. Yeah. And
But Netflix does 4K. And some 4K stuff I've streamed. It looks real good.
Yeah.
Like I watched Coco that way, and was it
Did it buffer at all?
No.
Never buffered.
Was it a super inferior experience to watch it on Blu-ray? No. Like, it was fine.
Yeah.
But if I decided, and I did like that movie a lot, but I will probably buy it on disc if I want to watch it again because the disc is always going to be better for now. Anyway, maybe one day it won't be. But by then it'll be 8K and it won't matter.
Well, right. Well, you're right. The resolution will keep going up, so we'll never get like...
Well, it'll get there. 8K is the limit for 35 millimeter film.
I think 8K might honestly... I think we may see broadcasters just skip 4K and go straight to 8K.
That would make a lot of sense in terms of retrofitting your hardware.
Because what people don't get is, and I had a conversation with a sifter on the site about this, is what people don't get is that every time you jump the resolution... Like the TV networks have to rebuy everything. Their cameras, which cameras are really kind of cheap in the grand scheme of things, all their pipe work, all their transponders, all their trucks, everything has to be changed. And I'm wondering,
down to the cables.
Yeah, seriously. And so I'm wondering, I'm like, I'm on the edge of getting a 4K TV, but I'm just like, wait a minute, there's no content for 4K. Yeah, I still can't watch NFL football in 4K.
Well, that is a whole different kettle of fish. I'll tell you this, like, I do not regret buying my 4K TV at all.
You play a ton of games.
I use it for video games.
Yeah. And that is
movies.
one case where it is worth it. I mean, if you play a lot of games, you watch a lot of movies.
That's what I've told tons of my friends. 4K? Do I have 4K? I'm like, do you play a lot of high-end video games? Like that, because that's why you need that monitor, that TV.
But then you also have to upgrade your consoles.
Yeah.
If you want to be able to play in 4K
or whatever.
Yeah.
And just keep in mind that when you watch broadcast TV, a lot of it's going to look terrible.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Even stuff that might
unwatchable. It's not terrible, but it's like it's not going to look as good as the stuff that supports it.
Yeah.
It's not going to look like Blue Planet.
Yeah. And because of what you said, the 35 millimeter max is at 8K, I honestly think that ultimately they're just going to kind of skip 4K and just really go to the end result. I mean, that's the end of the line pretty much.
For existing media as we know it. I mean, and once you go beyond that, you're in a realm where like the human eye gets kind of questionable in terms of
where you can't see the difference.
Not that you couldn't see the difference in terms of like the 8K versus like photorealism, but like a live action, like an actual live, I am watching this with my actual own eyes thing. But like it's just a diminishing return.
Yeah.
Like at that point, why are you buying thousands of dollars worth of TVs for the sake of maybe a difference of 2 pixels in a certain shot with a certain color and a certain way of moving the camera? Like. Much more likely that once you hit 8K, the revolution becomes kind of changing how you shoot things.
I think the funny thing is, do you watch Silicon Valley at all? The show, the HBO show?
Not recently.
Do you know what it's about, though?
Well, it's a bunch of Silicon Valley like nerds at a tech company or something. Yeah.
But you know what their product is, right?
I don't remember.
It's compression. Honestly, that show is onto something, man. Like, to me, if a company can figure out how some kind of new algorithm to compress things, that's where all the money's going to come in the future, I think.
There was someone who had something like that a while ago. I mean, I guess that was sort of one of the big buzz things about
Because
like
it's easier to compress than to lay bigger pipes everywhere.
Right. I mean, that's possible. I mean, Gaikai kind of had a lock on that to some degree.
Yeah.
I remember Sessler coming back, having seen a demo of it, and be like, I don't know, they're doing it.
Yeah.
Well, in the end, it certainly is impressive, but
It is. It still is impressive.
yeah, it's still
But it's still not good
still
enough.
not there. Yeah. It's probably good enough for most people. And the other thing is, like, I feel like most people that I know who are more casual don't even know what that is.
Yeah, you're right.
And my one friend who is interested in it doesn't have a fast enough internet connection to do it properly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he canceled his thing after 1 month.
I don't even know anyone who's tried PlayStation now.
I mean, I tried it at game events, and I tried like a
Yeah, but that's...
I tried it like a demo.
That's cheating.
I tried a demo on I wasn't here, but it was when I lived in my old apartment when it first came out, and it was fine, but
Yeah.
like I could still tell.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and the other thing is like the one game that I thought ran the closest that I had the hardest time telling was Uncharted. But I already owned Uncharted, so what good did that do me?
Right.
I mean, I guess it's good if you have some kind of pathological need to not have game discs in your house or something, and you only want to play things digital. But then, like, why not just download it? I just don't get it. I don't. What's this?
This is a Digital Foundry
Oh, comparing
PlayStation Now to playing it from the disc.
And what did they find?
That PlayStation Now's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they do talk. They also show tests where they show how many milliseconds you're losing, and it is pretty significant. But visually, it does pretty well. I mean,
Yeah.
you're looking at it right now. Can you tell which one is streaming and which one is off the disc?
Not really. I mean, my guess
you
would,
can.
my
You can
guess
tell.
my guess would be the left one is streaming.
Yeah, yeah.
Not on this so much as the.
Oh no! Look, the right is
there you go.
PlayStation Now. So yeah, the tech's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, we're looking
But
at
it-
this
but
at
the-
it in
but the-
720p.
But the tech is also good in Netflix, but you don't have to interact with Netflix.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So that's the key. It's like it doesn't matter what it looks like to me. How does it feel?
Yeah.
And every time I play something like that, it feels kind of mushy.
Yeah. I mean, but it is pretty impressive that it looks that
Oh,
good.
yeah.
And granted, this monitor that we're looking at right here is 720p. Everyone on stream's watching 720p.
Yeah. Yeah. Now show me God of War
Right.
running like that on 4K
Right.
on a Pro.
Yeah. Big difference.
Different ball game there.
So it sounds like regardless of what Phil and Todd say, we're still firmly planted in the corner of it's going to be a long, long time until this is feasible.
Well, I am.
If
sure,
ever,
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Todd is clearly taking a long game at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of Starfield and
Yeah.
the Elder Scrolls. I mean, it feels like Bethesda's really looking down the road, which is good, which they should be.
Yeah.
And like, it's, I guess I get that people are kind of frustrated that they sort of have not done the thing where that thing they've been doing for the last few years, where it's like, we're going to announce it and you're going to be playing it in like 3 months. Like, it's their immediate announcement to game thing, and now they're kind of really, Starfield is. What, 2021 maybe? Like,
Maybe.
2020, 2021.
They launched their Twitter account this week.
Elder Scrolls is probably 2025, 2026.
Yeah.
You're talking next gen, deep into next gen for Elder Scrolls
Yeah.
6.
I still don't think broadband in the U.S. will be where it needs
I don't think
to
it'll be there
then.
for that. No, especially not with how those games they keep improving.
Yeah.
You keep improving that. You keep improving what's happening there. I mean, I would say maybe like Bethesda's more on board because like Bethesda's games for the most part are the ones that would be the easiest to make work properly in that. Because look, yeah, Skyrim is an action-based game, but if you've got an extra half second of lag on stuff in Skyrim, is that really going to be a problem for you 99% of the time? No.
Yeah.
Fallout makes even more sense. I mean, not Fallout 76 is multiplayer, but like Fallout 4, like if lag is a problem, just hit the VATS. There's ways around it if you're just playing a single player game that is not Twitch based.
I wonder too what kind of an impact the repeal of net neutrality will have on.
Well, I mean,
if any.
Obviously, if the repeal of that leads to data caps, this is all out the window.
Right.
Because that's probably the biggest hurdle they have in Europe as well.
Yeah.
Because data caps are more of a thing in Europe and Canada.
They're more of a thing everywhere, but here. Because we've been protected, at least partially because we've been protected.
And at this point, it's basically, it's still there. It's still like that because, no ISP wants to be the first one to say, like, hey, we're taking away stuff from you, consumer. But one day, one of them's going to do it. And people are
immediately all the others are
people are going to whine about it, but they're not going to cancel because they still need the internet because the internet is a necessary service. It's not. It should be a utility.
Which is one of the big problems with repealing net neutrality is for the people who only have one choice.
Right, but
of an internet service provider.
One of these ISPs breaks that seal and doesn't instantly go bankrupt, the others will be like, oh, let's us do that too. So that'll be the end of that.
Yep. So there you go.
And then you really won't be able to do the streaming services anymore.
Yeah. I mean, even Netflix and everything will just...
It'll be a problem for them too, yeah.
What's going to happen is what net neutrality was there in place to prevent, which is companies like Netflix kicking money to the ISPs to get bigger pipes to customers. It's... Anyway, let's move on. We're going to talk next about something that has already arrived, but maybe cooling off, and that is the battle royale genre. And I don't know if it's it's cooling off is stupid because it's bigger than ever.
Yeah, but it's like as I've said many times, there's a finite number of people who want to play this mode, and I think we've found them.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm not willing to totally say, Fortnite and PUBG have split the audience for this mode between them. And that's the end of it. Because until Black Ops 4 jumps into the mix and we see what happens there, you can't discount. You can't discount Call of Duty.
The barometer of the
we got to see what that's going to be like. We got to see how people react to that. We got to see how the numbers are on Battlefield 5's mode whenever that comes along. And we'll see what the AAA publishers can kind of squeeze out of this. Not that Epic isn't a AAA publisher, but you know what I'm trying to say.
It really hasn't been, but
hasn't been, yeah. But you know what I'm trying to say.
Honest. No, I get it.
So we'll see. But I do think that the people that are interested in this mode, for the most part, have found their preferred game, and that is how it's going to be.
Just so you know what prompted this to talk about this topic, the last two Battle Royale games that you could say came from big-ish studios.
One of the most appropriately named ones.
Yeah. So the last two, Radical Heights from Boss Key and The Culling 2, have both completely tanked.
Radical Lows and The Culled.
I mean, look, nobody would have thought that a Battle Royale game could have done worse than Radical Heights, but The Culling 2 did far worse.
And The Culling 2 was coming off of a moderately successful
first
existing one.
Yes.
Wow.
The Culling 2, by the way, is the most shameless ripoff of all of them. You're seeing it right now, and it is PUBG.
Yeah.
It doesn't try to spice it up with any kind of style. At least Radical Heights was like, hey, we're doing this goofy, wacky 80s thing. No such story with The Culling 2. It is like, hey, how quickly can we copy PUBG and get our own game out?
Oof, that looks rough.
And, I mean, PUBG looked this bad when it launched.
Yeah, but, people have already gone through that. They don't want to do it again.
I don't think it looks that bad. I think it looks better than Radical Heights. Dude, Radical Heights when it launched was rough.
Rough, but at least I could tell the difference between it and the others.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. This is just here's Radical Heights.
Here's Radical Heights. I know Radical Heights.
Stylized, you know? And The Culling 2 was just like, hey, we're not PUBG, but we are PUBG.
Who wants to play us?
Neither approach worked.
No.
Both of them did terrible. So the question becomes, is it over? Have these two games taken all the market that's there? And are there any studios out there that are working on Battle Royale games? Should they just stop?
I think the AAA space battle over this is not decided, but I think if you're some kind of fly-by-night indie title, that's trying to kind of jump in on this trend, like adjust your expectations way low or pivot immediately. I think Fortnite and PUBG kind of have it covered between the two drastically different visual styles and approaches.
Speaking of pivot, the Culling 2.
Yeah. Whew.
At one point, it had 2 players on its servers. 2! How's that even possible? 2 players. So,
a peak was something like 14 or
yeah.
something like that?
So the studio completely bailed, took it off all the marketplaces, and now it's going to go back and work on the Culling 1.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a bomb. I don't think I've ever seen a game bomb so hard that it blew the developer back to the previous game. That is impressive splash damage.
Well, I don't know. Radical Heights sent Cliff Bleszinski into retirement. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true.
True.
I mean, he may come back, but right now, sure doesn't sound like it.
That's the interesting thing about the Battle Royale thing is that the stakes are so weirdly high.
Yeah.
And it's so appropriate for the mode. Like it's eliminating people left and right. Like it's incredible. And so I'm not willing to dismiss this as like, I'm not willing to dismiss it as like saturated until we see how Call of Duty and Battlefield do. But
some leaks have been coming out of Blackout, Call of Duty's Battle Royale. 64 players, 1 vehicle per map right now. And that's rumors. That's not substantiated, so take that with a grain of salt.
As in, like, whoever gets the vehicle, like,
I guess it's a race for the vehicle.
Basically?
I don't know. But that's the stuff that's leaked out over the last couple days about it. So, I don't know. I tend to think that because these games are so community-based and they're so dependent upon player count and turnover, that I think that maybe we have kind of found, like, the 2 games that are going to thrive.
It's super possible. And, like, again, the biggest handicap I think that Battlefield and Call of Duty are facing in this regard is they cost money.
Yeah, but they have a built-in player base.
They do, but does that player base care about this?
I don't even think that, like, Treyarch or DICE or whoever is making these games, I don't think they even care that much if the Battle Royale modes don't do well, because they have other parts to their games that are going to get people to buy them and get people to play them. I think it's these studios who are working on just Battle Royale games that are in a really bad spot.
Putting all your eggs in the Battle Royale basket seems like a bad move.
That exactly. I think that's what we're getting to at this point, that if you're working on a purely, unless you have a game that does things so differently, you have no chance because you're playing catch up with 2 games. Epic is gigantic. I mean, I talked about Fortnite taking over PUBG almost immediately because I was like, look, there's no way that the studio working on PUBG can ramp up big enough to compete with Epic. And I said it all along, that I thought the Battle Royale mode in Fortnite was going to destroy PUBG because Epic just has this pipeline of developers who can and they're doing it. Fortnite has so much stuff going on in it that every day there's a new story about it. How do you compete with that? If you're a team, even if you're PUBG, how do you compete with that? You can't really, and that's why you've seen...
And they haven't.
Right, and that's why you've seen PUBG slowly start to sink as Fortnite keeps rising.
Well, I knew that when I played, because when it first did the Battle Royale thing, I played it. That's how I knew, like I played it. I've still never played PUBG.
Yeah.
But I played Fortnite. I didn't get hooked on it. I played it for a while, just to see what it was all about. But the fact that you could get me to install and play that just out of curiosity means that you're going to have a much wider field to draw from.
Yeah.
And at this point, there's a lot of question about, like, people that played Call of Duty or whatever, like maybe they haven't played this kind of game before, maybe they don't know it exists. I find that to be difficult to believe at this point. Like, I feel like it's
Oh, they've heard of it at least. Everyone's heard of Fortnite. My mom knows Fortnite.
Yeah.
Like, every parent knows Fortnite. Like, anyone who has a niece or a nephew knows Fortnite.
Yeah.
I mean,
including Cliff.
Yeah, exactly.
Who had to entertain his nephews at one point, I think over 4th of July, and he's like, oh, all they want to do is play Fortnite.
He's like, they don't want to play Radical Heights. It was already off. I think Radical Heights was already down by then. But I really think that we've reached the point where we have the 2 winners. We have the one that's a little more realistic. We have the other one that's a little more cartoony and more stylized. The younger kids can get in on the Fortnite right away. The adults who maybe want something a little more simulation-like can get into the PUBG. Everyone's happy. Everyone has a game.
And there's such time commitments that I think one of the mistakes that some of these other developers have made is kind of the idea that, like, because the independent game space has sort of been partially, at least I would say, defined by, okay, someone finds the new hotness, and then everybody makes their version of that.
Yeah.
But that works for like a Metroidvania or like a point-and-click adventure because there's always room for more of these like three to 4 hour experiences, different takes on the same kind of thing. This is a game mode.
Yeah.
This is King of the Hill.
It is.
As you know, and people call it a subgenre,
Slayer.
but I don't agree.
It's Slayer from
it's a
Halo.
mode.
Yeah, with more players. Yeah.
And like so, it's basically a mode. It is. The permutation is what it is. Like, I mean, you can add building like Fortnite did, but it's still, you know, at its core, it's the same thing, no matter which one you're playing.
Also remember how long Fortnite was in development.
Right, and third, it requires a critical mass of players to function properly. Like, you can sell, 5 different developers can sell 5 different Metroid clones on Steam because it's going to take me maybe 5 to 10 hours to beat each one. They all look different, and I only need my own interest to make it work. Right. But if you need 100 people to get a match going
for every match,
like you need a critical mass.
And not only
that you just can't, and you got to pull those people away from Fortnite or PUBG now.
You need thousands of matches going so that as it goes from 100 to 99 to 90. Every one of those players needs to be able to join a new match.
Keep playing because
just
that's
like
the appeal.
That is absolutely the appeal.
It just keeps going. You only have as much downtime as you want there to be.
Yep.
That's the key.
Call of Duty the same way. That's why it's been so successful. You die, you press a button, you're alive. Like there's no waiting. It's just very quick. If you talk to any of the Call of Duty developers, they'll tell you that is really their secret sauce more than anything, is getting players in and out of matches very quickly.
You don't have time to think.
Yep, and if you
don't have time to get bored, you don't have time to stop.
Yeah, if you don't have that critical mass of players right out of the gate, people are just going to say, this is lame.
Yep.
That's really what it comes down to.
And so they have.
And they have, absolutely. So I think if you haven't found PUBG or Fortnite to be your thing in Battle Royale is probably just not going to end up being your thing. Like, I really think that's what it's coming down to. You're going to need to choose.
I think there's still, I know people that are, fans of PUBG and they enjoy Fortnite who still are kind of like hoping that like Battlefield's Battle Royale mode gives them something slicker to latch on.
More polished.
They want more polish. They want production value. They want that.
There is kind of an opening on the more realistic
side. But they're
side.
Perfectly happy to play PUBG until then.
Yeah, of course.
And if it doesn't turn out to be any better, or the polish doesn't turn out to be something that makes the experience better, they'll happily just keep playing PUBG or Fortnite.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing is, the customers have nothing to lose and the game publishers have everything to lose.
Yep.
And if you're a smaller publisher that's risking everything on one of these games...
Unlike with game streaming, which we were just talking about, how the shoe was on the other foot. Yeah, it's like a role reversal.
And like you just can't bet your company on one of these. It's too risky, and you have to get. It just feels like the customer base demands are so much higher than any other possible type of game you could make. Maybe maybe an MMO.
Yeah.
But I don't even if I'm the only person in playing the secret world, I can still finish the game.
No, you're right. It may be hard as hell if you do it by yourself.
Nah, but I've played that game 40 hours, and I've never teamed up with anyone except to do the dungeon runs.
Wow.
It's like, so I've probably spent an hour with other people.
Yeah.
But like a lot of MMOs today, you can play them as solo action or RPGs.
Yep.
And that's not true of like you need 199 other people to play a decent match of this every time.
Yeah. That is the thing that sets it apart from any other shooter. Any other shooter, you get 12, 14, 16 people, you're good.
Which is also one of the more intriguing things about like Fortnite and PUBG is there will come a time when you can't play those anymore.
No, you're right.
Because it's over.
I could see maybe there being an arms race where you get a Battle Royale. We're already starting to see it a little bit, where you start having Battle Royale developers saying, we have 200 players. Right. Or we have 1,000 players.
Well, you saw that on that PC E3 show, where they're like, we have 400 now, but we're trying to work to 1,000 players at once.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure.
Will that make it better? Who knows? But at least it has a bullet point.
It would have a novelty to it at first, at least.
Absolutely.
But what I'm saying is, like, eventually, once this fad is kind of over, it's unlike Minecraft. Let's say, for sake of argument, that something happened and Minecraft stopped being popular 10 years from now.
Yeah.
you could still load up Minecraft for a grandchild and be like, this is the thing that your
Like
parents
your
played when they
grandpa
were
was
kids.
playing.
Yeah. But like Fortnite or PUBG, like all you could do was tell stories and show YouTube videos to people. Like, this is what we used to do.
If YouTube even exists then.
Oh, the video never goes away.
Yeah.
For good or ill.
All that stuff will just get ported somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. I don't know. It seems like you got to kind of pick or choose at this point because I don't really see any. If you haven't liked Battle Royale up until this point, there's no savior coming, I think, that's going to convince you that, hey, yeah, now I do like it. I think either you're going to settle in with PUBG or Fortnite, or it's probably just not for you.
Yeah, I mean, keep an eye on like what the AAA space does, you know, in this fall, I guess, is when that happens. But like, yeah, it is what it is, and it has, you know, the critical mass it has, and it seems pretty clear that Fortnite has won, at least in terms of mindshare and enthusiasm at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
Certainly, you know.
Although I'm sure PlayerUnknown feels like a winner.
Oh, I'm sure they're fine, but no one's
like, I still feel like a winner over here.
No one's talking about the PlayerUnknown party at E3.
No, nope.
Like Fortnite, and like all that means is next E3, the next Fortnite party has to be even better.
Yeah,
and it's just
I don't know how that's even possible.
I don't know, but
they're
gonna try.
Well, I mean, the money they put into that party, I was pretty. It reminded me.
They got
of the
money,
old Sony parties.
and they got the organizational talent.
Yeah,
and we know one of those people
we do.
Personally.
Absolutely,
and they can do it.
Yeah,
and they could just become an E3 tradition at this point until the Fortnite party ends. I guess until the. But I feel like they've got that player base for good 3 years, good 4 years until. That's my question: is like how many of these people are going to go off to college and no longer be able to do this all the time anymore? How many, these things are cyclical.
I think a lot of people think they can go to college where they can do it more.
True.
Because their parents aren't there saying, you played this for 4 hours, you need to stop.
True, but that's how you fail a final.
That is absolutely how you fail
I almost did playing TIE Fighter all the time.
I believe it.
Or NFL Game Day when the PlayStation 1 launched. My whole dorm suite almost failed all our finals because we had a tournament.
NHL 94, Tecmo Bowl, all that stuff made me skip classes at one point or another. But I graduated with pretty good grades.
Yeah, I don't know how I pulled any of that
Eventually
off,
you figure it out.
Yeah.
You're like, I got to buckle down and do school.
I just don't remember doing that.
Yeah.
but I do remember playing TIE Fighter. Like, I don't know.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about No Man's Sky, one of the probably more legendary discussions that's ever happened on GameFace. It's been, how long now has No Man's Sky been out? A year and a half?
2 years.
2 years?
It's
been 2 years.
August 8th, 2016.
Wow. I can't believe it's been that long.
Neither can they.
Yeah. It's funny. Because really what we're getting No Man's Sky Next, which launches the 24th.
Yep.
Comes out for all platforms, and then the Xbox One version is finally coming out. And here we are seeing the trailer that made my jaw drop this week. The first look at No Man's Sky as I had personally envisioned it all along. This is what I thought the game was going to be all along. And I know a lot of people may not feel that way.
A third-person squad.
But personally, this is what I thought it was going to be like. I thought I was going to be able to go around the planets and see ships everywhere, other human players everywhere.
No, Sean Murray specifically said that was not what it was going to be.
I know, but I'm telling you.
It is what people thought it was going to be.
And I was one of them. I really thought that this is what, and now here it is. No Man's Sky Next, your wildest dreams realized.
After 2 years, they finally gave you people what you made up in your heads. Well done.
Well, the other thing, too, is that I had
Ringed planets. We finally got ringed planets.
Yeah. But, see, I thought that even, like, this wasn't going to be as good as I had hoped. And it, based upon what they've shown and a couple interviews that he did over the last couple of days, it is. It absolutely is what I was hoping for and expecting all along. This month went from, there's really no games I want to play, to, oh, wow, there's one game I really want to play now. And it's No Man's Sky. I never thought I would say that again. You continued playing No Man's Sky way after we had that discussion.
Oh, yeah.
I pretty much stopped after that. I never really went back.
About 200 hours in the PC version. I put about 100 hours in the PS4 version.
So,
and then I went back and did play the various updates when they came out. I still haven't finished the actual, like, they added the main story a couple updates ago.
Yeah.
And I have not finished that. It's a pretty long quest. Because I get sidetracked because I actually loved the game as
from
it
the
was
beginning.
from the beginning. I like the survival weird stuff. I like digging, puttering around on planets. I like all the additions. The additions are all gravy to me. But like, so I've kind of ignored the main quest in favor of like going around to see this planet or fly around over here or do this over here. I don't have a lot of attention span in this game. I go fly around and do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I should buckle down and finish the
and
storyline.
discover strange wildlife.
The storyline's like 20 hours long. Like,
Yeah.
it's like
I played through all the single player, what you could call the campaign, and it took me maybe a little less.
The new stuff.
No, I haven't played the new stuff.
No, the new stuff is completely different.
Oh, really?
It's completely different. It's all.
I mean, I feel like I'm going to be playing a new game again.
You are. It's all like all the story is like all character. There's characters. There's places you have to go. There's stuff to discover. There's mysteries and texts and stories and reasons behind things. And there's a whole quantum element to it. And there's a whole like alternate timeline thing. Like it's like Planescape Torment level weird. They came up with some crazy stuff. They did. I think they mostly delivered on the hints because when the game first launched, you remember you could find like the abandoned stations, which are like overgrown with like tentacles and stuff. Yeah. And you'd read the thing. There were like little short stories about how like kind of these little like Lovecraftian horror snippets. Yep. Like the storyline that they added to the game in one of the updates delves into that a lot.
Because there was a lot of mystery, but it was really the only overt narrative in the game.
Well, also there was like 10 of them.
Yeah.
You'd start seeing repeats, but they added, there's a real story quest there now. Like it's like a 20, 30 hour storyline. And that's on top of the bases and the exocraft stuff. And now I guess the new update, you're going to be able to do
unlimited base building, right?
Unlimited base building wherever you want. I think they've upped the number of pieces a base can consist of. So I think in the current version, a base can have 1,000 parts, and in the update, in Next, it can have 20,000.
Wow.
And IGN was...
They've obviously improved the graphics drastically.
The graphics
Sam,
and
go back
and the
to
draw
that
distance.
old footage you were showing a minute ago, and then kind of do a comparison and flip back to this so people can see the upgrades to the video. Look at that. Think about the trailer that we just saw, and now look at what the base game looks like.
Well, I mean, they've steadily improved it over the course of the last 2 years already, and this is another jump. Apparently, the planets are a little bigger.
Now look at that!
There's scope.
Oh my gosh!
There's scope to it. There's the mountains are bigger, the valleys are deeper.
Thanks, Sam.
They want you to kind of really still feel like, even though there's more people around, they want you to still feel like a small speck on this giant world.
Yeah.
IGN was reporting. They weren't able to take footage, but they were reporting back that like they played a bunch of this stuff, and at one point they found like a player-built base in a canyon that was totally vertical. It was built up from the bottom of the canyon to the top of the canyon, and there were stairs you had to go up. You could go up that took minutes to go all the way up through the whole. It was like a city built into the side of the canyon. And,
I'm excited, man. It comes out Tuesday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've forgotten what my ship looks like at this point. Like, seriously. Like, I can't wait to fire it back up.
They added the ability to drag resources from one square to the other in your inventory. I don't know why that took 2 years, but I'm super excited about that.
And take what we can get.
But there's tons of, there's also, if you haven't played it since they started doing the big updates, like the quality of life improvements are really impressive at this point. Like there's different sections in your suit now. There's extra storage in your suit. There's a whole section you can upgrade, which holds, it's a special stuff just for like extra elements that holds like 500, I think, instead of the 250. There's a section of your suit you can upgrade that only does technology upgrades. So you don't have to waste inventory slots on technology upgrades for the suit. You can just put it in that other section. You can get your freighter, and now there's freighters you can buy, and you can buy like frigates to kind of guard your freighter, and you can send your freighter team out to other places in the galaxy and do a little side quests, and they'll come back for you. Or you can go with them and do side quests over there and get side quests that are mostly seem to be like fetch quest stuff, but like they've been very focused on the idea of constantly giving you something to do and a reason to go somewhere.
Hello Games is about to make a ton of money again on this game because it's just now coming to Xbox One. There's a whole group of people who have never played this game that are going to have access to it. Not just have access to it, but have access to the very best version. They're going to play this. They're going to be like, what was everybody complaining about with this game?
I bought it again on the Xbox. I pre-ordered it on the Xbox One. I'm interested to see what it's like just because my PS4 and PC saves are obviously from day one.
I'm gonna have to download it again.
I mean, the PS4 save is actually from like day -4
Right.
because we got it.
We
early.
got it early, yeah.
So I even played this before day 1 patch, which is even rougher.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
Like, they changed a whole bunch of stuff from that that first initial.
It was not
outing.
a good first impression.
And I'm curious to see because those are games where I exploited a lot of the glitches and a lot of the bugs. So like I have like my PC save. I think I have like 200 million credits or something, and like all these I have like giant like Star Destroyer like frigate freighter thing, and so I'm like well set up in all those. I use this crash ship glitch to like get full 48 slot ships in both versions. So I'm curious. I got one of the main reasons I got the Xbox version because I don't want to delete my old saves, but I do want to know what it's like to start the game from scratch.
We also want to play it on your X sitting on your couch.
I could play it on the PS4 sitting on my couch.
No, I mean like at PC quality.
Oh, the PS4
couch.
looks great. It's got HDR. It runs at 60.
Oh, it does?
On the Pro, it looks amazing.
Oh, okay.
Unless they screw it up in the patch. I mean,
Which is
it could always
possible.
It's always possible. They ruin some graphical thing on the PC version on my computer every single time they update it, and all of a sudden it starts dropping to like 20 frames a second. It runs at 60, at 4K real well on my PC normally, but every time they do an update, one of the big updates, it breaks the water. And so every time I look at the water, like the frame rate crashes. And then they'll fix it in the experimental build eventually. And now it's fine. Now it's fine, but I'm waiting for whatever goes wrong with this. Yeah. And that's when I go back to the console version. That's why I've got so much time on the PS4 version, because while they broke some shader or something on the PC version on my computer, I go back and I play the PS4 version because it works fine.
Right. So there you go. No Man's Sky Next coming on Tuesday. So if you guys have it already, you've got to download the update for free, right?
Yeah.
That whole update.
If you already own it, it's free.
And if you've owned an Xbox One all this time, and you wonder what the noise is all about, you're about to find out.
And
in fact, you're going to hear the noise way louder than anybody else ever has.
Do be aware that the PC version still does not support HDR.
Really?
So if HDR is important to you, you're going to want to get a console version.
Yeah. I can't imagine too many PC owners would play the console version because of HDR.
HDR sure makes things
It
look
does
better.
make a huge difference. You're absolutely right.
HDR is like a little bit behind in PC because it's a different thing, and like you got to buy a new monitor, and so it's. But I'll tell you,
it makes a big difference.
HDR on the Xbox One X on The Witcher 3 makes it look
like
real
night
good.
and day.
And like Witcher 3 on Xbox One X doesn't even have very good HDR when you really get into it. It's pretty.
Yeah, as far as like being able to turn it on and off and see the difference.
I mean, it's there, but it's just in terms of like if you go and do the stupid thing where you dig and like check it, how many nits is this? Like the HDR on The Witcher 3 is pretty canned. Like it's not very well customized to the actual game, as opposed to something like God of War, which does that much better.
Time. Yeah.
But still, it provides a little graphical boost that is interesting. And No Man's Sky on the PS4 looks gorgeous.
Yep.
Already looks gorgeous. So who knows what it's going to look like when this next thing hits.
Yep. So we'll see you on some weird planet on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, you're still not going to see a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, be aware.
It's so gigantic.
Like, it's gigantic. The odds of seeing another player, I mean, you can.
You have to like organize it basically.
Well, right. You have to invite people to play in a group. It's a 4-player group.
Yeah.
You can play in 4-player squads, and you can, and there's no limitation. Like once you group up in the squad, you could get in your ship and go to the other side of the galaxy, and you're still in each other's game. But there's no tether.
You're literally light years away.
Yeah, there's no tether. And what IGN was saying, like one of the tricks, because like there's a thing where everybody can land on your freighter, and you can jump places with the freighter. Nobody has to use any fuel, basically.
Right.
But they said that one of the tricks somebody pulled was they had someone land on the freighter, and then they sent the freighter on a side quest, like on the other side of the galaxy, while that other player was in the freighter. And
what happened?
They have to get back now.
Oh wow!
Like you basically sent one of your friends to another solar system, and they're like, "Have fun coming home." Like it's like, I mean, No Man's Sky, you can pretty much go anywhere you want, but it's like, it was like, oh, this could be like the new practical joke in No Man's Sky. You lure somebody onto your freighter and then send the freighter to the other side of the galaxy and say like, good luck getting back. Like,
griefing.
Your friend griefing, and you can shoot your friends and shoot their ship down, but apparently it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And you cannot carry other people in your ship. Still one-seaters. I'm wondering, I haven't seen anything about this. I'm wondering if I can change the color of my ship yet. I would like to repaint my ship. It's an ugly orange color that I don't particularly like, and I would like to paint it like a nice blue.
Right.
I'd like to do that.
Like I said, I don't even remember what my ship looks like. It's been so long.
Both of my ships basically look like a cross between a Y-wing and an X-wing.
Surprise, surprise.
I dug through, I would just kind of keep playing. I mean, I had a ton of stupid-looking ships over the course of the time, but eventually, when it came time to get that last 48-slot ship on both saves,
I'm doing it right.
I went from solar system to solar. I mean, I traveled like millions and millions of light years to find. I like that one. Okay,
yeah,
I'll take that.
It's a big commitment.
But unfortunately, one of the ones I like the most, I think, is the PC version one. Is this disgusting rust orange color. And I love everything about how it looks except the color. And I would really like to repaint my ship, Sean.
Well, it appears that this game is going to last into infinity.
Yeah, they said they're going to do weekly updates.
Yeah, so I'm guessing eventually something like that should come along.
Yeah.
You'll probably have to pay major credits to
I
get it
don't
painted
care. I just
you
want a
obviously have
different
enough
color.
Just laying around.
I don't want this puke orange starship anymore.
All right, let's move on. We're going to go to our last topic of the episode. We're going to talk about a game that a lot of people were gushing over until it came out. And that is Octopath Traveler for the Switch. It's a JRPG, turn-based JRPG for Switch. This game was getting all the hypes leading up to its release. Now the reviews are coming out, and they're good. Their scores are decent. But nowhere near the hype levels.
They ain't Mario Odyssey good.
No. Nowhere near the hype levels for this game before it was released.
No. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, so I have probably played, like, getting on, like, 15, 16 hours on this, 20 hours. I don't know. It's up there somewhere. I'm just, like, dipping my foot into the Chapter 2s. Because the way the game works is there's 8 characters. Each character has a 3-chapter story, and you start chapter 1 with whoever you pick, and you finish chapter 1, and then you leave the little town you start in. And the idea is you kind of you work your way around the map, like basically a circle where you start. You walk your way around the map, and you pick up the other 7 characters by completing their chapter 1s with them, and then you move on from their town. The trick is that some of them are harder than others, depending on if you're solo or you got other people with you. The battle system is very driven around weaknesses, like weapon weaknesses, spell weaknesses, whatever.
Elemental.
And the idea is that you hit them with enough of those weak shots, and they break, and they can't attack, and they take more damage, and you use their weakness stuff to hammer them until they die. And like the perfect battle. You would use the weakness exploitation properly so that they would never get to attack you.
Yep.
You get a bonus for that.
And you can do it.
You can.
Yeah.
You can do it but like the first character I picked was the cleric, and I hit her boss of chapter 1, and I could not beat him. And so I started over and picked the guy with a big sword because I figured he'd be pretty simple.
That's who
and
I played
indeed
the
he
demo
is.
with. Yeah.
And then I went and I gathered some more people, and I went back to the cleric's town. And we stomped the thing. And they don't remain the same difficulty. The difficulty raises up every time you complete a chapter 1. When you start, you got to be level 1. The second character you pick up, you got to be like level 5. And then like after that, the third character probably be like level 7. There's a curve on it. And then once you kind of complete
That's
all
who
that,
I'm playing with, the dancer, the stripper, really.
and then once you get everybody together, like because the trick is like when you first leave your first character, when you leave the town, it's like you're like, oh, I'm gonna go do this part of my story now. And if you look at the world map, you see all the other characters in their chapter 1s.
You have to go collect them all.
And it all says suggested level, like levels 5 or whatever. And then you see your chapter 2, and like my chapter 2 was suggested level 27. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not doing that now.
Yeah.
We'll just keep going. And so now I'm starting to get to the point where I can start doing, starting to tackle some of the chapter 2s, because some of the chapter 2s are like chapter 20, we recommend a level 27, but some are like recommend a level 22, and I'm close enough to that to start. The big thing here is, and the reason I'm starting to slow down on this game, is it's becoming increasingly obvious that the characters, your 8 characters, do not interact with each other in these stories. Like they just...
It's like they don't even know the other people exist.
They acknowledge that they have allies, but they don't participate in each other's stories.
They also don't really work together in combat in any compelling way, at least based upon what I've played so far.
Everybody just kind of has their own tricks.
Yeah, there's no like team ups where okay, you have this element, this character has this other element. combine them together and it expands the output
there's
of
no
damage.
like Chrono Trigger style like
No.
team up stuff or anything like that.
To me, this is like the most basic JRPG like ever.
I wouldn't go that far at all. Like it's there's more to it than that. The problem for me is that, and I get why there's no real interaction between the party, because you've got 8 characters, people can pick them up in any order they want.
It take a lot of work.
You don't even have to pick them up if you don't want to. Like you could theoretically you could grind your way through this whole thing with one character
yourself,
if you wanted to. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to, but I'm sure some speedrunners doing it already.
It's probably already happened.
But like so I get that like that's a lot of work to do that
For the developers.
For the developers, yeah. But like a little bit. Like even if it's just like a Mass Effect style thing where like not every character in Mass Effect had a comment to make on everything, but some of them commented on some things and like some kind of interaction, some acknowledgement that we're in a situation in this part of the story where sure it would be good to have a big warrior dude, and I have a big warrior dude, and maybe he could be in part of that scene or something.
Right.
And there's nothing like that is happening. It's so weird because like all the key art shows all these characters together in like an inn, like planning something on about, and like they never acknowledge each other. It's so weird. And so part of what I like about JRPGs in terms of like party-driven stuff is sort of the way characters know each other and interact with each other and bounce off each other and grow together, which is like, as we said before we did the show, like you were saying that like the thing that pulled you through Persona 5 was that element of building the social links and being in school and these characters interacting with each other, and that's not here.
No.
And that is a tremendous disappointment to me. And I still enjoy it. I also think it's got the best soundtrack of the year so far.
Here's the thing
Music's
about
amazing.
The music is amazing, but the way it's implemented is so bad. Like they play the wrong music at the wrong moments a lot of times. Like the tone of the music never seems to fit what's actually happening in the game. Like, there's lots of moments where I'm like, wow, that song's awesome. I've been playing this with headphones, like, almost the whole time. I'm like, oh, that's a great song, but it's like this, like, hard-charging song, and meanwhile it's playing while there's, like, this heartfelt moment, or a lot of times on the inverse, like, it'll play a really sappy song, like, during battles. Like, it just... You can tell it's an indie game in a lot of ways. And one thing I would say is, to me, this game is really repetitive. And it's fair to say that most JRPGs, particularly turn-based JRPGs, are repetitive. A lot of times you're using the same attacks over and over. And I will say that this game does a pretty good job of giving you enough JP to get new skills so you're not using the same skills over and over. There's just not that many skills in the game that are flashy or something that you remember. Probably 2/3 of the skills are all just like buffs and things like that. They're not really like over-the-top attacks.
When you said JP, I mean job points,
yeah.
You reminded me that I haven't looked at what anyone's job point total is for like 4 hours.
Oh.
Like I probably have some skills.
You have lots of skills waiting for you there.
Yeah.
But look, I really liked Persona 5, but I really liked Persona 5 because it wasn't just grindy battle after grindy battle. There were all these other elements that made it interesting. Exploring the world was interesting because of the way it was created. The characters were all of them were different, had different personalities. You actually got to know them. You got to learn their motivations. There was the whole dichotomy of the one world that you lived in and the other world that you went to for battles. This game doesn't have any of that. It is really just this grindy, battle-heavy JRPG with random encounters. Like, if I have to fight another egg, I'm going to lose it, dude. Like, seriously, I don't know. I've loved JRPGs.
You don't like the flying squirrel that has an attack called These Nuts?
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. But you end up fighting the same enemies over and over and over again. And, like, I don't know about you. I've tried to flee. I can, like, never flee from battle. Have you managed to do it?
I've never tried to flee.
Wow. You're hard. I said you're hard, man. You haven't got tired of these battles?
No, we'll get the more you flee, the less XP you get, and then you're gonna have to grind later to be able to handle some later thing. I like it. I like the way the battles work. I just feel like it's so compartmentalized. It doesn't do a good job of like giving you a variety of things to sort of pull you through the game. The
combat system's also so simple. It's like the only thing you really have is choosing the power of your attack before you attack.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's it.
I entertain myself by trying to not let them hit me.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I do that too. It's
I
like
try
this
to
little
do-
meta game you
yeah,
play with
I
yourself.
try to have perfect
A
battles.
flawless battle. Yeah, I do that too.
And some of the boss battles are, like have some interesting twists to them. I like it. I like playing it. The compartmentalization of the different characters' stories is a disappointment to me, and sort of like undermines one of the things I like the most about like kind of epic party-driven RPGs. It's not ruining the game for me, but it is sort of making it easier to put down every time I play it. If that makes any sense.
Honestly, I played the demo for like 2 or 3 hours. I've now played the final game for 8 or 9 hours, I'm guessing. And I don't know if I'm going to play it anymore.
I'm going to keep going.
And I mean, we're in a dead period too. And if I'm considering not continuing it, it's not resonating with me.
I'm going to keep going. I want to see how some of these stories play out. Like I wish they were more interconnected, but like I don't. It's not like I don't think they're interesting on their own. Like several of them are. I like several of the characters as they're portrayed in that. They just don't have any personality once they leave that story.
Yeah.
Which is sort of an issue. But I love the art. I love the music.
I will say this. After playing the demo, now that I played the final game, I was not a huge fan of the visuals playing the demo. Now that I've played more of the game, there have been several moments where I'm like, oh, wow. Like, where they do a really good job with the art style.
Yeah.
And I had not seen really any of that in the demo. So visually, I am more impressed with the game now than I was before. And that is one element that I was kind of down on when I played the demo, where my opinions kind of changed.
Yeah, and I like the variation in the environments and kind of how the world map unfolds as you sort of work your way outward from like that circle you sort of start in. I do agree.
I hate the map.
I do agree with a lot of the some of the reviews have criticized the idea that like once you've done one dungeon in this game, you've done them all.
Yeah,
and
I feel like that
they are not wrong.
I think the battles are that way. I feel like once I've done one battle, I've done them all with whatever character. Like once I get a new character, I use that character for like 10 battles, and I'm like, now what? Like there's just not enough depth to the combat system for me, in my opinion, to buoy a game that's this long. Like I looked at it, I stopped playing last night, and I sat there and I was like, am I going to play this again? And then I was just like, why? Because the stories aren't really hitting me. Maybe it's just me, but it doesn't seem like anyone really has all the stories are kind of the same. Every character's lord has been killed, and now they're out to avenge or whatever. Or they've been either that, or they've been suppressed or held down, and they're breaking the chains and breaking away.
Well, that's also why I think it's so like the common thread through almost the whole thing is that some respected form of authority has gone wrong or been taken down or betrayed them, and they must set that right.
Yeah.
And so the fact that everybody's kind of thematic motivation is so similar is another reason I think it's so weird that everybody's story is so independent.
Yeah,
from
no, that's a good
everybody
point.
else's.
Because they
like,
all have
I
a
feel like
shared
they could have,
experience.
I feel like they all would have something to talk about if they would sit down at the
No,
frickin'
they
inn.
never had that moment where they all fist bump and like, yo, you too? Yeah, me too.
Like even when you're
there's
picking,
no bonding.
yeah,
or
even when
anything.
you're picking people up on their chapter ones, they're just like, oh, you'll come with me, cool, and like that's it.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing.
That's
there's
pretty
no
much
personalized moment.
Yeah.
Which I find disappointing, and maybe it gets better later. But I'm like, we're hitting the 20-hour mark, and I haven't seen any of that at this point. Like not even to the level of like little skits or something like they do in the Tales games, where like they just sort of have little scenes where they talk to each other that have nothing to do with anything. They just happen while you're walking around or whatever.
But yeah, it's like
even
building the
like
camaraderie between the characters.
Like I'd like to see what Ophelia says to Ulberich or whatever, but like
doesn't happen.
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah. One thing I will say though is if you're looking for a time burner, this game will burn that time right up.
It's there.
It's also great for handheld, although one thing I will say is I cannot read the text in this game in handheld mode, undocked. The text for me is too small. No matter how close I hold the screen to I can't read it. It's just, that part of it, I don't think they play tested well enough. I mean, you can just see by watching this screen right now that if you shrink it down to the handheld screen, it's going to be really hard to read. But as a handheld game, it's good because they're turn-based battles. You can stop and pause it whenever you want. And it maybe in some ways, it's better to play this game that way instead of just sitting on the couch and doing marathon chunks of it, because then maybe the repetition doesn't grate quite as much.
That could be. I mean, but it is really long, and I think it does, even if it doesn't nail the narrative aspect of things tremendously well, I do think it captures the kind of the epic scope of the old school RPG in a way that we don't really see much anymore.
Absolutely.
If you had a fondness, I mean, I know the developer said that one of their big influences was Final Fantasy VI. I kind of see that.
A little bit.
I think for me, this is more reminiscent of the Saga games.
Yep.
Saga Frontier, that kind of thing. Especially in the sense of like the separate characters sort of coming together. Like that was sort of a trademark of that series. Also, the occasional moment where you're like, "Oh, I do not have the party lineup to battle this guy, and I'm going to die."
Yeah,
there was an element of
I've
that
stumbled
to it.
into caves where I am just way out of my league.
Yeah, you got to pay attention to the danger level.
Yeah, there's
in
a
the
little
corner.
thing
You
at
can
the
wander into
bottom of the
places you're not ready
screen.
for.
Yeah, I walked in, saved. Thank God there was a save point right inside that cave.
Well, it also
because I would have just sauntered right in there.
It wouldn't have mattered because it auto saves every time you transition.
Oh, when you go inside, it does.
Anytime
I
you
didn't know
change
that.
screens, it auto saves.
I've been burned by the save system in this because if you stay out in the overworld, it does not auto-save. And I've gone on where I fought like 10 enemies or whatever, and then died on the 11th one, and they're like, want to go back to your last save point? Or do you want to go to the main screen? I'm like, no, bro, I need a checkpoint. And they're like, nope, and they'll send you all the way back to the last time you manually saved. So
every time
if you play this, save.
Yeah, every time, as far as I've seen it, anytime you transition to a new zone, a new named area, it auto-saves.
But it is a little bit like Dark Souls in that you can stumble into areas you have no business being in, and you figure it out real quick, and you're like, I'm out of here.
Well, it's also like old JRPGs. You could do that. You know.
No, you're right. The other thing I would say is you were talking about how it is like old SNES era JRPG. Totally agree. But I would argue there are dozens of games from that era that are way better than this one, and you can probably buy for like $4.
Well, not if you want the actual cartridge, but...
well, I don't know.
Like what? Like Final Fantasy VI or something?
Well, no, not that. I mean, obviously that...
Almost any JRPG on the Super Nintendo is going to run you more than retail.
Really? More than $60?
Easily.
Really?
Like if you want something of that quality, you want a Chrono Trigger or a Lufia 2 or something like that, you're paying 80, 90, 100.
Or you could just play it on MAME.
That's true. I mean,
for nothing.
I'm going to advocate piracy.
I'm not advocating piracy. I'm just saying.
I mean, there was a time when you could have just played it on the Virtual Console, but now we don't do that anymore.
Or you could have already paid for it on the Virtual Console, and now you can't play it anymore.
Or you could have bought a Super Nintendo Mini Classic.
Right. Yeah. And so this game is full price. It's a $60 game. And so I see that, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, this is, to me, is not as good as tons and tons of JRPGs from that era that I think you could probably find some of them cheaper than $60, or you could play on MAME, or you could play on your NES Classic or your SNES Classic. I don't know.
Yeah, but you've already played those.
Yeah, well, we have, but there's a lot of people who haven't.
Yeah, but if you haven't played those, I don't know what you're doing buying this game.
Well, I mean...
Because there's nothing else to play.
You got to realize there's people being born every day.
Yeah, but...
Who aren't as old as us.
But this game is for people that know this genre.
I think you're right.
This game is for veterans in a lot of ways.
Even though it's not really that hard.
It's not that hard, but it does assume you know a lot about how the battle system works from the outset.
Yeah.
And it expects you to kind of piece together how the world works and how you're supposed to go about things on your own.
Yeah.
And I feel for most... also, I mean, it's just the talent they've got behind it, especially getting Mitsuda for the. I mean, this is Mitsuda firing on all cylinders, compositionally.
Music
in terms of use of music in various situations,
the implementation of it is not great.
But like as a soundtrack, this is probably his best work since Xenogears 1.
That's a bold claim.
I'd say this is Mitsuda's best soundtrack in 20 years.
It's certainly up there, for sure. But again, I feel like the implementation of it kind of sours it a little bit. Which
I hate Xenogears.
He just turns in the music, and then they do what they do with it. It's
But
not his fault.
But I mean, like, I hate Xenogears, like almost every element of it. But I think it's the best soundtrack on the PS1.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't need to like the game or like how they use it in the game for me to think that the music's great. Mitsuda is one of my favorites.
Yeah. So I would say, if you're a Switch owner and you're sitting there right now, you're like, hey, there's these 2 games that they just talked about on GameFace for my Switch. Which one should I buy? That's a tough call.
Well, it depends what you like.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, these are 2 very different games. Captain Toad and Octopath Traveler are like, I don't know.
Polar opposites.
Yeah.
But I think there are people out there who own a Switch and are like, I've played everything. I need to buy a new game. Which one of these two should I get?
Well,
I mean, a lot of it will depend on what they like.
Well, the upside is you can just download the demo of Octopath Traveler and see what
Is this still up on the eShop?
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll get
And then your
way more
progress carries
value out of
over.
Octopath Traveler, but I think you'll get more enjoyment per minute from Captain Toad, I guess is the best way to put it.
I still ain't buying Captain Toad, so
Yeah.
I'll still play this.
Well, you also remember, too, it's cheaper than
until
Octopath
No Man's
Traveler.
Sky comes out, and then it's probably all bets are off. I don't know. I feel like that's what's going to end my Octopath career.
I think that might be the case. So there you go. That's our impressions of Octopath Traveler. If I do continue playing it and my opinion changes, we'll talk about it here again on GameFace, or maybe I'll talk about it in the grind or something. But as of right now, I don't see myself going back to it. Matt, you think you're going to trudge forward after the 20 hours?
Yeah, I'm going to keep playing. I mean,
Okay.
I don't dislike it. I've slowly come to kind of realize, like, oh, this is just not going to be what I thought it was in terms of how the party interacts with each other.
Yeah.
Which is a disappointment.
As to say there's no interaction whatsoever.
Not so far. But like I'm gonna keep going at least to see how some of these stories start to turn out.
Well, maybe things will change for you, and you'll convince me to jump back in.
Maybe.
It's going to happen with No Man's Sky this week.
Yeah, well, they did a lot of work between
They
that
did.
and now.
They absolutely did.
Maybe
But
if Octopath,
it's still going to happen.
Maybe if Octopath Traveler adds base building multiplayer.
It's possible. All right, it's time for our trailer of the week. It was a week full of great trailers, but I plucked one that caught my eye, but I could tell it also caught your guys' eyes because I can see the stats for views on Sifted, and this trailer did very well. In fact, probably one of the most watched trailers for an indie game in the last 6 months on the site. And the game is called Death's Gambit. This game has been in development also for quite a while. PlayStation 4 exclusive. To sum it up in a sentence, it's basically a side-scrolling Dark Souls crossed with Shadow of the Colossus, if you can believe that. If you don't believe me, you will after you watch this. Let's roll it. So, Matt, I'm surprised to hear you were not aware of this game.
I've heard the name.
I mean, this is Matt Kyle, the indie game. Dark Souls with Shadow of the Colossus?
2D.
Still, though.
Not as interested with the 2D.
Interesting. I think that game looks hot, and I'm not a big Dark Souls fan.
Looks good, but it looks good more as like when I see that, I think more like, oh, my Castlevania sense is tingling.
Yeah.
I realize Dark Souls is kind of a modern Castlevania.
Pretty much, yeah.
But if you're talking about like that Shadow of the Colossus tie-in, I'm waiting for Pray for the Gods.
If that ever
even
comes.
happens. Yeah,
it's funny how that game like showed up and everyone was like, oh my God! And then it just disappeared. It just like disappeared into the ether. I don't know what happened to it.
They gotta make it.
Yeah, I guess. It
It's
seemed
on
like it
Steam.
was pretty far along when they showed it the first time.
That was a vertical slice demo. They gotta make a game now.
Okay.
I'm not worried about it. It'll be along one day.
Okay, we got questions here, and we're going to answer them.
Revolutionary.
We're breaking the mold here on GameFace. We always answer W. Matthews' question. It's just a tradition. So here we go. Dauntless, a pretty solid take on Monster Hunter for PC has been popular. over 2 million players in open beta. Do you think Capcom is a bit late with Monster Hunter on PC? Also, WTF took Capcom so long to get any Monster Hunter to PC? As a PC player, that kind of game would have done very well.
Capcom's kind of slow to learn things. I don't know.
Capcom also with PC in general has just always been kind of wonky.
Yeah, and like sometimes they jump on it and sometimes they don't. Like Dead Rising has had some decent PC support.
Yeah.
They got Dragon's Dogma on PC of all things.
There's no way to predict what Capcom is going to do.
Monster Hunter was always a weird beast, no pun intended, and it's in the sense like it was so stuck on portables for so long. And then it was tied up on the Wii for a while. I could never figure out why they weren't going more aggressive with that game in terms of putting on everything.
I'll tell you why. It's because Monster Hunter was huge in Japan. And in Japan, no one plays games on PC.
Right.
PC gaming is like zero in Japan. And so...
It's visual novels.
And I think a lot of these Japanese publishers, they're very nervous. I mean, look at Dragon Quest. How long it took for Enix and then ultimately Square Enix to finally believe enough in Dragon Quest to try to push it in the West. I think you're seeing the same thing with Monster Hunter in the West. And I think Monster Hunter World was the big eye-opener for Capcom. They're like, oh, holy crap, what have you been waiting all this time for?
Because it also never really caught fire here when it did get released here before.
Because it was always
it was trapped on the Wii or it was a handheld thing.
Right.
And that's just not how online gamers work here.
No, it's true. Yep. And as for your other question about Dauntless, yeah, I'm shocked that Dauntless is doing as well as it is. Like, I had no idea. It kind of came out, only got a couple reviews. Most outlets didn't even bother reviewing it. But 2 million players now.
Well, I think.
But it is like.
I think, like you said, Monster Hunter World sort of broke that floodgate open, but PC gamers have no outlet.
Actually, I wonder if Dauntless. I wish I could see the data for Dauntless to see if where the date was that Monster Hunter World broke, and if that was the day where things started going.
It wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Like, if you crave a type of gameplay, you will seek it out.
And everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
It's all over social media. Monster Hunter, Monster Hunter. Well, what do I have? I have a PC. And then they find a blurb, like maybe we wrote on Sifted, like Monster Hunter like for PC, or on any website. They go to Google, they're like, Monster Hunter for PC, and it picks up on that.
I think I remember even seeing like some stuff like, if you like Monster Hunter World, here's some other stuff to play kind of thing. It might have been on one of those lists or something.
Could be, but yeah, I think if Monster Hunter had come out before Dauntless probably wouldn't be doing anything right now. I also have a feeling
on
once...
PC?
Yeah. And I also think once Monster Hunter World comes out for PC, all those players that are playing... Is Dauntless free to play? I think it might be. So maybe that gives it a chance to survive.
I think Monster Hunter's the king.
Absolutely. But I'm saying if it costs money, it's done after Monster Hunter World comes out. If it's free to play, it might still retain some audience once Monster Hunter World hits PC.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm only tangentially aware of Dauntless, really.
Yeah, like most people.
Yeah,
I think that's why why he asked the question is because, holy crap, 2 million players really are playing this game, and I've never really heard of it. It's unheard of for a game to do that. So... Good question, W. Matthew, as always. Major Tom, do you think making a Battle Royale game world that's more dense and lived in, something similar to more open world games like Horizon or The Witcher, would make for a more distinct experience in the Battle Royale genre? Or are we just stuck with Fortnite, PUBG, and whatever Battlefield and COD do?
I think we're pretty much stuck with Fortnite, PUBG, and whatever Battlefield.
Yeah, that was kind of the whole crux of our discussion on that, is that they've kind of shown that they've shut everything else out. I don't think that... I mean, visuals always help a little. Do I think that if you had a game that had rooms that were more populated or looked more lived in would actually help a game ascend? I don't think that's enough.
I mean, there might be room for kind of like genre permutations, like a fantasy battle royale, or a super sci-fi one, or like
a current day one. I guess PUBG is, honestly.
PUBG really is that, or like a urban crime, like a GTA style thing, or like you could do like different permutations,
or like a cartoony one, or something completely out of bounds.
You could argue that Fortnite is already that. Although, like, I mean, if you're talking about something like Fur Fighters, that's a whole
like
different
creatures,
angle. I mean, Warner Brothers cartoons have a deep enough cast and a violent enough history that they could do something like that with a more like comedic angle.
Well, remember the Wacky Races cartoon? Yeah. I mean, that was like a Cannonball Run type thing. Yeah. Like, those characters would fit in that kind of an idea.
Star Wars.
Yeah, you could do it.
Yeah, I just don't know if you'd make any kind of a splash with it.
I think you're right, though. I think it's more the style and the IP versus, hey, these visuals are really stark and barren. Give me something more detailed. I don't think that'll really...
Yeah, I think you probably got a better shot at, like, at least making someone who already plays those games try it if you got something that looks a little different or has a higher level production value or something like that. But is it going to lure them away permanently? Like, I don't know. I feel like feels like Fortnite's going to be one of those games that people just return to even when they go try something else.
Yep. Short Raver, thank you very much for your Twitch Prime subscription. Thank you. Any of you who have subscribed with Twitch Prime during the show and we missed it, thank you very much. Unfortunately, while we're doing the show, we don't get to check out the chat very much. So, let's see. The real Mr. Sweet. I'll read the question since you probably don't want to. Hey, Matt, I ask every time I make it to the stream, any chance for a quick video of your Transformers collection?
When they're out of the box is...
Yeah, once Matt has...
They're still pretty much packed up. It's been a long year.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to draft one of our friends to drive me in his giant SUV to IKEA so I can pick up a bunch of glass display cases to start working on that.
Once Matt has it set up, we'll bring a camera over here and we'll just shoot a tour with Matt of his collection. It's not just Transformers either. He has a lot of really cool stuff. So once he's got it to a place where he's happy to show it, we'll make sure we shoot something and we'll get it out to you guys. Here's a good one, Killzone310. What's up, Killzone? I haven't seen you around for a while, bro. Funniest glitch you've ever run into. P.S. I have PlayStation Now. With a name like Killzone.
Godspeed.
I never would have guessed.
Funniest glitch. I mean, in recent memory, it's probably mostly Mass Effect Andromeda stuff. There was a period, a certain patch at one point kept causing this glitch where when I'd go in to talk to someone on the ship, they'd get stuck in their T-pose, like that.
Yeah.
But they would still animate their hands and limbs like while they were in that pose. So like people would be like hitting themselves in the face while they were talking and like looking in the wrong direction. And I thought that was pretty funny. I captured some footage of some of that, but like. I don't know, but I don't get a lot of glitches very often.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
well,
lucky
anymore they don't happen that much. I would say probably 10 out of my 20th funniest glitches ever were all from Red Dead Redemption. Literally, the first week I played that game, I saw such crazy stuff, like horses just walking off a butte out into wide open air over canyons, cougars then running and attacking the horse in midair.
Oh, the cougar people were a pretty good glitch.
The cougar
in that.
people.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just that game when it first came out was crazy. The stuff that would happen out of nowhere. And I think part of what it was is that you would get lulled into a sense of security, and you think everything's going good, and then just out of nowhere something insane would happen. And it would just catch you off guard. It would literally make me belly laugh. So I think. Unless I'm going back way back, I would say probably just Red Dead Redemption in general just supplied so many funny glitches.
I think if we're talking about kind of like an all-time, they don't happen to me because I don't play the game, but every year when the new FIFA comes out, there's always a new collection on Twitter or Reddit of all the gay glitches, where the players get stuck together or climb on each other by all the weird animation glitches that just turn out into making all the players look like they're having a big orgy or whatever.
Yeah.
Those crack me up. Those are very funny, especially because of just the animation and the collision detection gets better every year, so they look more realistic every year.
Yeah.
It's just it just looks like all these soccer players just can't keep their hands off each other, and I think it's hilarious. So I like the yearly installment of the FIFA glitches. Those are always a lot of fun.
By the way, if you like glitches in games and you like to laugh at glitches in games, check out Highlight Reel from Kotaku. We curate it every time they publish it. A lot of you may think it's just gameplay clips or whatever. The majority of it is just goofy and funny glitches. So if you ever see that in your Sift, give it a watch. Let's answer a couple more. Oh, here's one. Derek D. He's playing with one of our segments. Derek D. 111. Over or under? Well, I'm surprised we didn't do over or under today. We're going to do it anyway, thanks to one of you guys. Over or under, Spider-Man PS4 sells 8 million. Is that lifetime? I'm guessing he's saying lifetime.
I will go higher.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, but it's on
I
par
think
with God of War.
He chose the number well, because I think
Yeah.
that's right around where it's going to settle in.
Yeah, well, I think it could be about that, or if it critical masses the way God of War did, it will outdo that easily.
Yeah, I would say over.
I'm gonna say over,
Yeah, I go over too. It's Spider-Man.
especially given like the reaction and the sales of that system this week. Like I think that game is gonna move so many copies and so many consoles. People are underestimating it.
Let's see. The stand user. Somebody trying to defend Octopath Traveler. Shane, you defended Octopath for simple combat, but you love the combat in Ni no Kuni 2, which I would argue is the most simple, easy JRPG combat I've come across in years. I think you're using a little hyperbole there. I definitely do not think that Ni no Kuni 2 is the most simple combat ever. It's also, I mean, which combat are you talking about? Because there's like 3 different styles of combat in Ni no Kuni 2. And really the root of my problem with Octopath Traveler is it's repetitive and it's the same thing over and over. Maybe you came in late, but I pointed to Persona 5 in comparison, saying there are all these other elements of the game that kept the repetition of the combat from grinding me down to a pulp, or however you want me to put it. But with Octopath Traveler, there's nothing. There's nothing else other than the grindy combat, the random encounters, and then story. And obviously story is a subjective thing that everyone's going to take differently. So I'm not going to say, I don't like the story, so you shouldn't like it. You may love the story. It hasn't really caught me. So there's just nothing around the periphery of Octopath Traveler to keep things going forward if you're not a fan of kind of the same combat over and over. And I would also say that I do not agree with the fact that even the base combat from Ni no Kuni is more simple than the combat from Octopath Traveler. I just don't agree with that. But my big complaint with Octopath Traveler isn't just the combat. It's that that's all there is to do. So yeah, maybe you came in late and didn't see the whole discussion on it, but that's kind of my perspective on it.
Ian Esquire asks, how do I stop collecting Amiibo? My solution to that was that Nintendo pretty much stopped making them.
Yeah.
So
if you don't pre-order them, you can't get them anymore.
yeah,
so.
I'm definitely not going to get that Dark Souls one. And I mean, I'd like to get a Ridley when that comes out, but it's months away.
I thought they put that up for pre-order already.
If they did, I missed it. So maybe I'm never going to see
Was it Ridley? No, it wasn't Ridley. It was the other one.
Splatoon.
Yeah, those went up.
I already have a ton of Splatoon ones. I don't.
Yeah, I have like the Inkling Girl, I think, already. I do not collect them though. I only have like 4 Amiibo.
I have the girl and the boy and the squid and the from 2 because I thought that looked better. I thought those Amiibo looked better, and I have the 2 women, the Marie and what's her name? I don't know. I never played it, but I bought the Amiibo anyway because I'm a sucker.
Let's see. Let's answer one more. Also from Ian, he used to do PAX's big prediction on his show. Since he doesn't do that anymore, what are your big predictions in the gaming industry? Oh boy, that's too big of a present to unwrap right now, I think, unfortunately. Maybe ask that question the next time we ask for questions for Ask Shane Anything. I can go into a little more detail then. Mike's Q. Here's the last one. Kingdom Hearts has always rubbed me the wrong way, and I feel it is overhyped. I bought the blah, blah, blah remix to educate myself for arguments. Has a dislike of a game ever got you to play it? Why and how did it turn out? Everybody knows what mine is. It's Dark Souls.
Right. Trying to think of a game I didn't like but played because I didn't like it.
I mean, I played Dark Souls because I didn't like it, because I knew other people would want to see me play it because they knew that I didn't like it.
Also,
does that make sense?
Also, because you lost.
Yeah. Also, yeah, exactly.
Not really. I can't think of anything.
Can you think of any game that you didn't think you were gonna like, and then you went and played it and you did like it?
Dark Souls.
Yeah.
I mean,
you had a negative opinion towards
I didn't
that
like Demon's Souls and Dark Souls 1, and then I had to get through Dark Souls 2 because I reviewed it for Revision 3, and about 2/3 of the way through it, something clicked, and all of a sudden I understood Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And then I could go back to Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1, and I did like them now. And I was pretty good at them again. Whereas I couldn't do anything before. I mean, Demon Souls, I struggled with that first like big gooey boss with the spears and shields. And then when I went back and played Demon Souls after I did Dark Souls 2, I played for something like 4 or 5 hours Demon Souls before I even died once.
Wow.
So like, yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of expected to not like Dark Souls 2, but I ended up being the game that like clicked for me and unlocked the whole Souls thing for me.
Yeah.
So I guess so, but I didn't play it because I hated it. I played it because Adam needed someone to review it, and he didn't know anyone else who he thought would be able to get through it.
All right.
So he called me.
And then you didn't think you're going to get through it either.
There were moments. There really were moments, but it was like, believe me, if anyone other than Adam Stassler had called me to ask me to do that, I would not have done it.
Yeah.
But like when Adam calls, I have to answer.
You answer the call. Yeah.
And what was there was one other thing.
Did you find one more?
Yeah, it was because I had an answer for it. Where'd it go? It was early on. Oh, here, Justin Horman. Can you think of any other time when only 2 games dominated a genre as much as PUBG and Fortnite, and it was hard for others to jump in with their own game? Yes, Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
The
Or
fighting-
you could go Call of Duty and Battlefield.
Yeah, you could. But I mean, you still had Team Fortress. You still had Counter-Strike happening at that moment. But I think the closest analog I can think of is just the dominance of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and all those other fighting games that kind of like
That were still good.
they were still good and peppered around it. All the SNK stuff was great. All that stuff was
break
good.
in, yeah.
And it was a
Virtua Fighter.
eventually, like I think Tekken and Virtua Fighter and those games made some inroads, but for a couple years there, it was Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and everybody else.
Yep.
So yeah, that would be the closest thing I think I've ever seen, unless you want to count like Mario and Sonic.
Yeah.
They were certainly the kings of the platformers, and I mean, when your main competition is like
Bubsy.
Arrow the Acrobat and Bubsy, you're not really up against the
Or Glover.
Glover.
Remember Glover?
Oh, of course I remember Glover.
Story.
Or James Pond.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go.
There's a good thing to do to you for the losing the fantasy draft thing is make you play a bunch of like terrible old mascot platformers.
Yeah, that might be your punishment because it looks like I might win.
Possibly, but then we never did your punishment for last year.
That's true. Maybe we'll have to do them just both at once. We'll both just do a stream where we both just get punished. We just take turns punishing each other. All right, so that's it for GameFace 135 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. Hope you guys have an excellent weekend. Thanks to everybody who subscribed through Twitch Prime during the stream, and thanks to those of you who support us on Patreon or are subscribers on sifted.net. All these different revenue streams are keeping us afloat. It's pretty crazy how things have worked out after 3 years and all the different pivots that we've done, but we're doing okay, and that's all because of you, so thank you very much. Hope you guys have a great weekend, a safe weekend. GameFace is up and out.